Hello and welcome to another episode of the draft analysis of the Porch League. I'm here with Black J 32. Say hi.
Hello.
And we're discussing season, what is it? Fucking
Season 15.
15 of the Porch League.
I think we're approaching our 4-year anniversary of being
my gosh.
Pokemon Draft League.
That is both really cool, and it also means we're getting too old to play Pokemon.
I know.
But it's been a trip for sure. So anyway, this is another time of us drafting. This is maybe our third time on the current meta of like what do you call it? Like DLC
in tier list, basically.
Yeah, DLC, not national decks. And every time we do the draft league, we try to do it a little bit different to spice it up, make it interesting for us and interesting for the viewers. So this time, what we're going to do, so first what we're going to do is we're just going to like analyze the teams, but then like the thing that I'm bringing over from how I analyzed the AADL this past season is I'm going to sort of ask the question, how might the average team beat this team? So that's sort of like a new part of the agenda, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we are not going to do any tier ratings. I'm still going to post my own individual like tier list on the Discord, but you're not going to get a rating at the end of this. And so
Oh yeah, totally, just like I did last season. It'll probably be up immediately following this video.
Right, exactly. So all right, so the other I guess difference, you can explain it, Adam.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you to explain it, but so the other difference is that we're gonna actually make our analysis even longer than it normally is by splitting it into 2 parts, and each part is going to be the same length as our normal analysis.
Yes.
Yeah, and so in order to further kind of stretch apart and like have as much content as possible, we're inviting a coach from each division, and we're going to analyze the division separately. And so this
so our guest guest artist this week, or our guest analysis this week, if you couldn't tell by their giggle, is Ian. Why don't you go ahead and say hi?
Hi, if you identified me from my giggle, don't ever speak to me again. I am horrified. What a bad energy to start with. Let's try round 2. Hi, I'm Ian, coach of the Haxorus, and I'm really happy to be here. I kind of invited myself, but I'm glad that it worked, and I don't know. I think poorly of myself in terms of like how well I really analyze things, but I have opinions, and I'm here to provide them.
There it is.
That's like good content for us.
Thank you, or congratulations. I said thank you because I'm drunk, but congratulations for making the sword division this time. How many other times have you made it?
Good question. I made it in season 9.3, which one, of course, was still Sun. Honestly, okay, I probably was in Sword after the season I had Chandelure, because I made playoffs, but I don't remember being in Sword.
It might have been one of those times.
Right? This is my second or third time.
Right. So congratulations on making it into the Sword division, and good luck, because it seems like a pretty difficult. We were talking about this beforehand. It seems very difficult, but honestly, I think that we're just like retaining good coaches. Rest in peace, our former champion 2 times in a row. As I say, retaining, but it feels like we have like it feels like a big mix-up, Collins in the Shield division. There has been some changes, but it's like I don't envy you for sort of your path toward the championship this season, or path towards the playoffs this season, because holy cow, this feels like a very stacked. Also, just we went through and talked about each of the teams. It feels like there are a lot of good drafts on this side of the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And for what it's worth, I think in the Shield conference too, there's also a lot of great drafts. But especially the more I dug into this conference with you all and sort of our prep for this, it's one of those things where on the one hand, I hope and intend to rise to the level of all the other coaches around me, and on the other hand, I told a joke before about how my usual pattern here is to claw my way into the sword division and then be kicked off the mountain back into shield where I belong. And that's a little mean to myself, but something tells me it will happen. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, it's very interesting. There's 7 teams per division this season, and actually 4 of the teams in the sword division were all in the shield division last season, and all. I think
Oh,
it's you,
wow.
me, and Sean and Brian Tim, and I think
I'm
all
gonna-
4 of us
I'm
had
gonna pull up the
really,
rankings.
really great seasons.
Yeah,
last
my
season.
best one ever last time. And I think I remember too, it was also weird last season. I may be misremembering this, but I think it was like the majority of the playoffs was from Shield, which I think there was consensus had never happened before.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's notable that Andy Kramer dropped because he definitely would have been in the short division and it would have pushed one of you out. But one of the former Shield people out. But yeah, that's pretty the only like sort of retention from last season's sword division are Andy, me, and Nick.
And Nick.
Wow.
How do we determine that? Maybe this is not the right time for this, but
Who cares?
I'm seeing that Dunsparce they won the play-in game, and the 8-9 they were the 9th seed, and they won the play-in game, so they did win the championships. But like, just based on record,
Andy's team they were the Dunsparce, were they?
yeah, Andy.
Okay. Oh, my bad.
Andy Kramer. Yeah, so he would have won, but then won the championship, but then been in the Shield division. Is that right?
I think they might have made. It depends. I don't know if we count the play-in game as part of playoffs. So it would have been. I don't know. We would have to see if would that be an example where the. Oh yeah, I don't know because it would have been 8th and 9th seed would have been. Yeah, I think
the short answer is Andy and I would have had to collaborate as the board, and we probably
right.
When in doubt, I reach out to other folks in as much of the league as I can. We would have.
That's fair.
But it would have been
a constitutional.
That would have been fucking wild if the person who made it in as the 9th seed on a technicality and the fact that we only have 14 coaches now made it back into the Shield team, even though or the Shield division, even though they won. Even though they're the champion, that would have been very wild and would have.
Yeah.
Anyway, that doesn't happen because Andy gracefully wins 2 championships and then drops the mic.
He throws the microphone on the stage and he steps on it and makes us listen to it crunch, and then he goes away so he can teach.
Yeah, and said, "Thank you. I'm gonna go be a civil servant and teach the youth." So instead, we're stuck with these 14 assholes, and
which we are only 3.
Yeah, exactly. And of that, the number 1 overall pick for probably the 4th fucking time is me.
For real.
I'm not even on the board. I have no say about anything, and it just keeps happening. So I'll take it.
Hey, y'all keep talking. Big nasty insect just landed on my desk.
Yeah, and you almost threw away your first round pick too, right? Your number 1 overall pick. What were you thinking about going with?
I was honestly, I was really hyping up Hydreigon, and I was like, even if it got nerfed in the sense that it moved up a tier, I still think it's a really good Pokemon. And
no, it didn't even move up a tier. It didn't.
No, it was
down.
160. No, it was 160, and now it's 180. And
it stayed 180. It stayed 180. We talked about moving it down, but it stayed where it is.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I thought for sure it was moving up. Anyway, And Hydreigon, I think, is a really good Pokemon, and I was thinking about it the whole time, but I also had all these other sort of like meta theories going on. Like, I think that I'm really good with Pokemon that just have like natural bulk and natural offense to them, and so I was like, I should get a really good Steel type, and that was sort of like my sort of mode going into the draft was I want to get the best steel type on the board, and I get number one overall, and that kind of threw me for a loop, through a loop, because I was like, wait, I can pick between Garchomp, Tornadus. I've already had Dragapult. So anyway, I picked Tornti first overall pick just because I felt like I had like a ethical obligation to do so, and because I love my top tier birds, even though this one doesn't get roost. So anyway, on the board is my team. So what do you two have to say about my team?
Yeah, I
Adam,
think.
go first.
Yeah, go for it then.
No, you go first. You go first.
Ah, jeez.
What a great
Okay.
start. Can you folks tell we're professionals in reverse to this? Because we did and are.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it is a lot easier to talk over each other when there's 3 people compared to 2.
True.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So, anyway, yeah, so I think that this team overall is really fun. I mean, Tornti has proven itself to be extremely versatile, extremely strong. As a tier 200, it's been, we've seen it paired with Excadrill recently with Sloop's inaugural season, and it performed really well. I think this team really shines actually though in the mid tiers. So you have, we'll talk throughout this analysis about the meta shift and about how, or not shift, or was there no shift in the meta actually, about top heavy and about how we moved up a bunch of Pokemon from tier 160. And I think this team is kind of a direct response to so many Pokemon moving from 160 to 180. Kyle drafted tier 200, tier 180. Excadrill was already in tier 180, so it wasn't a Pokemon that moved up. And then really just skipped the 60s and really focused on the mid tier. So Rotom Heat is part of that core, but it's really like kind of fills out the top of the mid tiers with Rotom Heat, Gardevoir, Zarude, and Seismitoad. And I think those just work really well together. And I'm very interested in seeing how effective that this team will be for Kyle. I think the low tiers are all good value. I think they all add a little bit of niche utility, but I don't have a lot to say about them. But those top, basically the top 6, yeah, I think are good. I think actually, as we were going through this a little bit earlier, we were looking at Andy Taylor's team. There's only one Andy this season, so we're looking at Andy's team. And I feel like this team is the opposite of that team, and maybe we'll get more to what that means when Andy's here. But it's very it's offensive. There's not a lot of bulk. There's not a lot of recovery, even though there's technically a regenerator pair in Tornti and Aldino, and Aldino as a Wish Passer too. I just feel like there's not a lot of recovery, and there's Kyle pointed out that most of these Pokemon have an attack stat, either attack or special attack of over 100. So there is some level of immediate offense, but yeah, I'm not sure. My question for this team is basically related to its defensive staying power, especially if there are certain things where, if there's a Celesteela or something that Excadrill is really struggling to break, and that's like kind of an easy switch in. And so even if Excadrill is coming in rapid spinning away, rocks, it's still taking rocks every time. And so I don't know, that's kind of that's my question with this team. And so I think Kyle will pilot it well because Kyle's a good coach, but I'm curious about that team building aspect.
Yeah, I think all that's great, Adam. I think you totally nailed it. I'll add, I think to sort of reinforce, I think you're down bad when Audino is your best defensive mon, and it isn't. I guess I should clarify, right? Obviously Rotom is. But Rotom is best when it can be flexible because it can either, hit hard or be defensive or somewhere in the middle. And so I do think it is a shame how much of this team's defense will rely on Audino. And I also think this is a really solid team, right? I don't want that. You're so right to point out, Adam, that this team is going to struggle defensively, and so I think Kyle is going to win then by ensuring that he doesn't do that he doesn't fall into the trap of insisting on using regen and insisting on wish passing, when instead you can probably just win if you get that one Dragon Dance off on Aerodactyl, if you hit Nasty Plot on Torn, etc. I think Kyle is going to see great success because just every Pokemon on this team is really solid. And I think even down to the fact that like his final take was Hippopotas, right? Because it gives that Hippopotas alone gives so many options here, right? In that now Torn gets access to Rock Weather Ball, which is really, really cool for a flying type. A lot of flying types don't get that. And Drill goes from either having to set its own sand or get by without it to not really needing to use it. There's an element too that I think is crucial, that like this isn't a sand team, it has a sand option. And I think how do I put this? I think I'm kind of stealing your point, Kyle, but I think it is a really good one, that it's really easy to draft Excadrill, draft one of the more expensive sand setters, and then because you did that, feel like you've got to run Sand Rush or Sand Force every week, when in truth, Mold Breaker's a great ability too. When I use Excadrill in OU, it's usually as a Mold Breaker spinner, and part of the reason for that is because like that utility option is a really good one for Drill. Not drafting Hippowdon will ensure that Excadrill will not make you feel like you have to run those sand sets. And I think that's going to be really, really fascinating to see. My very final point here, I also think it's really smart how well Torn is protected. There are 3 electric immunities, counting Electivire, and Rotom Heat as well can tank a hit. And just in general, I think if you're going to draft, whatever your top thing is that's being drafted, right, you want to make sure you protect it to some degree. And seeing the ways that I think Torn is really going to be able to shine on this team gives me a lot of hope that Kyle is going to, as he usually does, kick ass this season.
Yeah, well, thank you both for the compliments. I'll take all of them. I think that when looking at the like top tiers, when you have the first overall pick, it's like, do you pick the best I mean, I think the best Pokemon still in the format is Dragapult, but I've already had it, so and I've had Torn T in Gen 7, but not in this current generation, so I wanted to try it out. Going into the draft, though, I wanted to like draft a good Steel type, so it was really like freaking awesome, and I didn't expect to get Excadrill at the end of the second round. And I felt at first that it would be really problematic that I drafted a tier 100 and a 180, but I think I found a lot of good Pokemon that sort of complement those two in the low tiers and the mid tiers, including the tier 20s. I hear that it's not as bulky as some might like, including myself. I feel like, I've won past seasons because I could click Roost on Zapdos and no one could win. So I get that it's maybe not as bulky as normal Kyle teams. But at the same time, though, I think that it's a lot of Pokemon that I like. Not only is it like Seismitoad, which I think I popularized in our league, but also Pokemon that I feel like I've come to love and almost in the off season going into this season, including Gardevoir and Frostlass. One of the things that I thought was like kind of fun is I thought that what if I drafted Excadrill and no Sand Setter, just to prove how good Excadrill is outside of Sand. It is I think, 5th overall in our league, 5th overall all-time kill leader. And I
Wow.
think honestly, as a mold breaker, it's good enough. You know, dual stab and with the buff to rapid spin, giving it you +1 speed, with an HP stat of 110 and attack stat of 135. I think that it's like, this is a good first round pick. You know, I was first overall, so I picked Torn T, but Excadrill's really good. So, anyway, I'm really happy with my low tiers. I think that I'm going to get defensive and say that the team is bulkier than the conversation would lead people to believe. You know, it's like even Zarud has 105 HP, 105 defense, and 95 spit F. So, you know, it's not like I have a Clefable or these normal flying types that I've done really well with in the past, like Zapdos and Togekiss and Moltres, because Torn doesn't get Roost. I think this is a pretty bulky team. I think I would categorize it as bulky offense, and so you know, it's like I have Rocks and Excadrill, Seismitoad, Aerodactyl. I have Spikes and Frostlass. I have Rocks and Hippopotas, and then I have like Defog and Torn, Rotom, Aerodactyl, and Rapid Spin and Excadrill. I think I have a lot of options. I do hear though that they're a limiting factor is in the like physical bulk and the overall bulk of the team. But I think overall, I'm really excited about the team that I drafted. It feels like a lot of Pokemon that I have an affinity towards, and so cool. I guess I'll just pivot into the second question of each team that we'll do, which is how might the average team beat this team? And I'll ask both of you, and yeah, you go from there.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, kind of honing in on the lack of bulk that we're talking about, that choice items are going to be your friend, Specs and Band are going to be your friend when you're prepping against Kyle. I think the average team, I mean, the key is going to be breaking Torn T, of course, with that regenerator, and so, you know, keeping up pressure with rocks and bringing lots of knockoffs to make sure that your heavy duty boots on Rotom and Torn are gone, and bringing in Rotom to defog, bringing in Excadrill to rapid spin, and not letting them, you know, get those free moves off just on a switch, but making sure they take damage, that they get punished for that hazard removal. So playing that game a little bit, I think is going to be your friend, and that longevity, you know, is really gonna wear Kyle's team down over time. That's my take. And I think if we're gonna talk about one thing, I saw just because this is similar to my team, is that I think this team is super weak to like a Terrakion type, where you know you're getting like a little bit of edge quake plus you know, some fighting moves or something. So anyway, that's those are a couple things that I noticed.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah,
unfortunately, Tracheon is in my division, and so it's drafted by Ian. So, what do you have to say? How do you beat this team?
Yeah, well, I will bring Terrakion because it'd be dumb not to every week. But even if that wasn't the case, right, I want to build on what Adam said, because Adam, I think you're absolutely spot on that hazards are going to be crucial to every match, in that you want to get them up, and you need to be mindful of how Kyle's going to clear them. I think especially once I had that thought, or once, you know, you sort of breached it, my follow-up thought was, okay, well, that's going to encourage him to rapid spin with Excadrill, and you do not want that to happen. And in general, I think, you know, take Adam's advice. Get those hazards up, knock off everything you can, because this is a team that's super weak to rocks, and be mindful of drill. And in general, I think you will lose if you under prep for drill. And a thing that I think we hit upon, but I just sort of want to get down to one phrase, right? Like, know that Excadrill will come. Never expect Hippopotas, right? It will come sometimes, right? And so you should have your water type or your grass type is gonna handle it, because if you look at Hippopotas wrong, it's already dead. But the thing that I'm trying to get at here is never count on sand, right? Because Kyle's not going to bring sand most of the time. He doesn't need it. It's a cool option when he needs that speed, but most of the time he's going to be mold breaking, spinning, etc. Final point, we didn't hit on this a lot, but I do just want to point out, I think Gardevoir has been like really underutilized in our league, but it's a really, really fascinating pick. If nothing else, note Trace, right? I think the Trace, not a lot of Pokemon get Trace, and those Pokemon, I mean, it's like this in Porygon too, right? And neither of those, at least in my time here, have completely kicked ass. For me, when Kyle and I were talking before the season about Gardevoir, at first it was like, it's not very good, and then it was like, it's a sleeper. If you don't consider how Gardevoir will trace your ability and beat you, at least a little bit, right? Like, don't over prep for it, but don't under prep either. I think it's this. I think it's in the nitty gritty details that Kyle will win a lot of his games, and that it'll be really easy to lose when you overlook the weird tech that he has a lot of access to. That's my take.
Cool. Well, thank you all. I'm not going to tell you how to beat me, so we'll move on to the next Sword Division team, which was 4th overall pick, Washington Pokemon team. Coach Brian, who drafted...
I want to clarify. I want to clarify just because I don't know that we set this up top, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating ourselves. We went in draft order, ignoring all of the shield conferences, right?
Right. Yeah. So So we're going through just Sword Division teams, and then from there we're just doing draft order. So 4th overall pick is Washington Pokemon team with Landorus Therian as the round 1 pick for this team, but Melmetal being the tier 200, the highest tiered pick of this team. So what do you two have to say about this team?
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how Melmetal gets used. I'm hesitant to say too much because I faced Brian week 1, so I don't want to give away everything that I'm kind of prepping for. But Melmetal I think went undrafted last season, and Ben had it this season before and didn't like it very much. So we'll definitely have to see how that goes. I have to say, maybe this is embarrassing, but I didn't look at this team and immediately think that it was a Trick Room team, the way that several other coaches immediately latched on to. And that's mostly because my experience with Oranguru is in monotype, and Hatterene was a snipe for me. I really wanted it for Magic Bounce as to improve my hazard control. And so I was like, oh man, Brian's got that Magic Bounce. He's like getting his hazard control going with Landorus, Rotom, Hatterene, and hazards with Chansey, Landorus. So anyway, so it's like really thinking about those things. So I think that this team, obviously, there's been some discussion, like in the different tier lists that are made, it's relatively slow. With what is it?
I think Drapion is the fastest
at
Pokemon at 95.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, so there's maybe some concerns there with nobody at base 100, and we were just chatting beforehand about like any potential trades just for speed or just to patch some of those holes could make this team look really scary. And I think a lot of the pieces are there. Like the top 5, really, I mean, the top 6 are good, but really the top 5 are great. Like Hatterene, Chansey, Rotom, Landorus, Melmetal. Like that could come every week, and those are really wonderful. So finding the other Pokemon to slot in will be good. Yeah, I was just thinking about like some of the other Pokemon in tier 80 that are fast that are still available are like Excelgor, and I think Crobat is in tier 100 or maybe tier 80. That one's still
Are you
available.
saying this because you don't think like Appleton is like particularly works well with the team, or what?
Yeah, I guess yeah, I think the top 5 kind of each fill out some roles that are kind of critical. And yeah, I just am not quite sure that the tier 80s, Appleton and Drapion, fit super well, or they like. It's not that they're bad, but I'm just like not convinced um, that the value that they're adding is like most aptly positioned, I guess. Basically, I think there's a big drop off in utility after Hatterene. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's generally what I think, but it is definitely very scary, and I would expect that Brian can field a strong team every week with those top five plus, plus something from the lower tiers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll I want to add on to this. You know, I'm going to sort of do like a bell curve, I guess, or like a reverse. Let me do this. Adam is absolutely right. This is a really killer team. It's really scary, and I think there's a couple tweaks that could really improve it. Just because there's been so much discussion, and I'm not going to necessarily repeat all of it, but rather just going to agree that Trick Room is so hard to pull off. I think in any format, but especially in draft, right? If you roll up against an OU team with Trick Room, you'll identify immediately what's happening, but you may not have the tools to fix it. In Draft League, especially looking at a team like this and seeing how slow it is and the fact that there are multiple setters, it's hard not to prep for that. And further, I think that I thought more about a Rangaroo than I should because it's tier 40 and you shouldn't think a lot about those. But one thing I want to sort of alert you to, Brian, is there is no reason to field a Rangaroo if it's not setting Trick Room, right? With Hatterene, you have the benefit of it hits really hard, it has magic bounce, it is a fairy type. In a hypothetical where I am, looking at team preview versus this team, I see Hatterene, I don't know if it's Trick Room or not. If I see a Rangaroo, I know you're bringing Trick Room, and even if I didn't fully prep for it, I immediately am going to adjust my lead accordingly. And so this is kind of what I'm getting at. I think what you need to be really careful of is sort of acknowledging how easy this team is to prep for as opposed to one that isn't so slow and doesn't have multiple Trick Room users. I think this option of swapping Appleton out for something is worth considering. And everyone in this league knows that I would die for Appleton. I love that little guy. And I think even as simple as like swap out Appleton for Flapple, and after a Dragon Dance, there's your new fastest Pokemon, right? So that is the truth. That is how I feel about it. And I love every single one of these Pokemon, and I think what you're trying here is really, really fascinating. I think you are a coach who thinks about Trick Room and about really unique mechanics in a way that if anyone's going to pull this off, I think you can. I hope more than anything else that you prove us all wrong, and don't do this because you'll be a jackass, but I hope that you could, at the end of the season, rub it in all of our faces about how you went 9-0 with a Trick Room team.
Right.
That would make me happier than anything else. I just worry about how possible it is. But prove us wrong.
I think for me, I don't necessarily believe in Trick Room in a Draft League team in the same way that I don't necessarily believe in weather for the most part in Draft League teams. But I think if there is a coach and a team to do it in Draft League for the Porch League, it is Brian and it is this team. I think, it's like, even if, like you were saying, if Oranguru is on the board, that it's going to be a Trick Room option this week. But, if I lead as someone who has Frostlass with Taunt, if I just lead Frostlass turn 1, all Brian has to do is lead fucking Melmetal with Choice Band, like, steel moves, turn 1, and I'm screwed. So there is versatility here. I think it's just going to take a lot of creativity to convert that versatility into, like, winning games. As an example, I wrote down in my notes that Phalanx could sweep 2 or 3 times in the season and just be like the overall option for this team to sweep in the end game. I think Brian in the past week in AADL was kind of losing most of the game against Ben, and then at the last moment set up with oh gosh, with the his steel Pokemon, he clicked the like shift gear Pokemon and just like swept the last little bit of the team that was left. And I think Phalanx really is that version of what that could be on this team. It's like he has good Scarfers and Rotom Wash and Landorus Therian. I think Drapion's a good Scarfer as well. There's some good setup options. So there is versatility here. But I think ultimately this is a Trick Room team, and I don't necessarily believe in it in draft league. So, like Ian said, if there's a coach to do it, it's Brian. It'd be really fun. But we'll have to see. In my eyes, it feels like it's like a little bit more proof of concept than anything. So, for you two, how might the average team beat this one? With Chansey and Dusclops and, Melmetal Landorus.
Again, I don't want to say too much because Brian and I are going to play in the first week. But I do think that, again, focusing on, there's some knockoff weakness here. Melmetal's Choice Band, Chansey's Eviolite, Hatterene.
And Dusclops, too.
And Dusclops, yeah. And, there's any potential room service items that you could have Landorus with room service or something like that. So I think, knockoff is a great one to start with. And then, just controlling speed and, playing around the different Trick Room terms. Obviously you could bring Protect to stall out the Trick Room turns and things like that. And I think that those are some of the ways that will be helpful for coaches to approach this match.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying that Trick Room. Sorry. I was just saying quickly, it's kind of annoying that Trick Room doesn't have an item that prolongs its status in the same way that terrains do and weathers do.
Yeah, it'd be too busted.
Yeah, so the Protect really does kind of it has to be. If it's Trick Room, it has to be 4 turns or 5 turns, but one of those turns is switching to a different Pokemon or clicking Healing Wish and then going into the next Pokemon or whatever it is for the Trick Room team. So that's kind of sucky, and makes it a lot more that Brian has to focus on specifically managing the phases and managing the momentum in his favor. And I think if you're going up against Washington Pokemon team, you have to do that, but in reverse. You have to really think about how do I manage phasing? How do I manage momentum? How do I make sure that the options that Brian needs to win don't happen? For me, like you said Protect. I think Taunt. Taunt can really help against things like Chansey and Trick Room options and things like that. Obviously, there's Hatterene that can kind of screw with that. But anyway, that's my thought. What do you think, Ian?
I think you guys have hit it. Absolutely bring Protect. I think that's the number one thing here. Until we get the long-awaited room extender, we're going to have to stick with Protect. That's I think a big thing. Point 2 I would say here is don't sleep on any of these Pokemon. I think even just down to Sudowoodo, right? If you get smacked with a Rock Head Smash, Choice Banded Sudowoodo, you're not going to like that very much. And my final thought here is get rid of Hatterene as quickly as you can, both because that gets rid of Trick Room and it gets rid of Magic Bounce. And once Magic Bounce is gone, even if Oranguru has come to be the other Trick Room setter, it occurred to me that you can run moves like Whirlwind, Roar, Dragon Tail, and really throw a wrench into that positioning that Brian is going to be relying on so much here. The more chaos you can rain upon that, the harder it will be for Trick Room to work.
Right. That makes sense.
But again, remember that Magic Bounce sends Whirlwind, Roar, and Taunt back at you. So that's why Hatterene has to be the first thing to go every time. Which
Right.
might be a note for Brian as well. Hatterene is going to take the most heat, I think, on your team.
Right. And I think also like I think the league shouldn't sleep on how heavy this offense is. 143 attack in Melmetal, 145 attack in Landorus. Like if you play OU, you might think that Landorus isn't that offensive because oftentimes it's like Spadef or Scarf or whatever the fuck. But 145 attack with ground moves, 136 at special attack in Hatterene. Like this team has a lot of offense built into it. It's just, can it have the type of momentum that it needs, and can it take control of, I guess, the like turn order or phasing in order for that to be, I don't know, in Brian's favor and not your own? That's going to be the question that you have to ask when you're facing this team. Next up, overall, going from 4th overall to 7th overall, is Andy's Sivo Weavile. First overall pick was Zera Aura, and also the other tier 180. So it's kind of like Zera Aura, Latias, and Corviknight is sort of the core that this team is based on. Ian, what do you think about this team?
I like it. I struggled really hard to come up with any like points of critique.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I think, how do I put this? There's a couple of mons that I sort of like have put my stick in the sand as I don't think are very good. I nominated Magmartyr to go down, and I think it belongs where it is. I don't think Morgrim should go up, etc. But I also can't deny that, like, you know, for their tier, they're good picks, and on this team, they work really well. I think, you know, the notion of Zera Aura behind screens makes me want to die. And, you know, also, as I am wont to do, I can't help but look at some of these low tiers and, like, Pinsir is really good for tier 40. You're setting rocks, you have 125 base attack and Moxie. Like, you know, it's the sort of thing where sometimes you get down to the lower stuff and you're like, I don't need to prep for that. I feel like you got to prep for more Grim Pinsir, as well as Latias, Zera Aura, and some of the bulk that we see in Celebi and Primarina and Corv, right? And so, on the topic of bulk, this was the only thing that I wonder how this is going to play out, in that I am, of course, not Andy, and I haven't been around that long, much less, you know, paying that close attention. But my understanding of, you know, how Andy wins is by, like, just blowing stuff up. And the game's over in 20 turns because the attack stat was so insanely high that there was just nothing that could be done, right? And of course, this is paired with the fact that, you know, Andy is incredible at positioning and team building and all of these other things. What I'm getting at is, I wonder if this team is just like a little bit too defensive, a little bit too passive for Andy specifically. I wonder if Nido Queen was Nido King, how that little difference in power might play out. And, you know, if Celebi was a little bit less... Celebi is, of course, great because it's 100 across the board, and also really needs to set up because of that. That's my biggest thing, right? Which is probably not even going to come up. I trust that Andy is... I know that Andy is a coach of the level that he can team build around that. That's my only... I guess that's like advice to Andy, right? Is that, like,
Right.
you know, be mindful of and don't necessarily be afraid to abandon things if you start to find, like, this offense is a little lower than I'd like. You know, there's trades to be made. And I think the fact that the only critique I have of this team is I worry a little about how it will work with this coach says so much, I think, about how threatening all of these bonds are individually and how threatening they all come together to be on this team. Great team. One of my favorites.
That's so funny because I wrote that in my notes as well, that, like, is this an Andy team? Because in a lot of ways, I feel like my team, which is less bulky and more offensive, feels more like an Andy team. And this team, which is more bulky and less offensive in some ways, is more of like a me team. It almost feels like we should just like trade out in some ways. If this team was
I feel like if you trade
Latios, yeah,
Spencer and you keep Audino, it's perfect.
right. It's like if this team was Latios and Nido King instead of Latios and Nido Queen, I would have no questions. I'd be like, this is an Andy team. It's perfect. I think there's great type coverage in the top 6 Pokemon. When you come to like electric weaknesses and electric immunities and all that kind of stuff, I think like poison weaknesses. If there's like an ice weakness going on here with Latias, and your steel type isn't just neutral to ice, and then you have Celebi and Nidoqueen, so like but then there's Primarina. So maybe there's a little bit of an ice weakness in the like Pokemon that are going to come most weeks, but for the most part, I think that like the type coverage is like probably some of the best we see in the Sword division. So I like that a lot. Yeah. One thing I'll note is that like beside this last season was Andy's worst season. In the sense, I think he went like 6-3 or 6-4 in the regular season, but then and then in the regular season went, and then in the 2 previous seasons before that he went undefeated. I'm curious because of what we talked about with this being like quote an Andy team or not. If this is the type of like what we should expect from Andy is undefeated regular seasons. Can he get a regular season undefeated record with this team? I don't know. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the things that the two of you said. I do agree that it's a little more defensive. You're not seeing a lot of blown out of the water attack stats. I had Zeraora for a handful of games at the end of season 13, and I didn't really get into the groove of team building with it, but I wonder if Andy will, if at the end of the season or in the middle of the season, Andy will start to feel like, well, it's kind of like Jack of all trades, master of none, except it's fast.
Which Celebi is also, in the sense it's like based 100 across the board.
Right. Where it's like you just can't quite get the job done. And so as a result, I think that Andy is really going to be bringing, we saw last season, Andy like didn't hesitate to bring, lower tiers almost every week with Sneasel. And I think that Pangoro is just like a slightly better version, or it's a little bit bulkier, it can take an earthquake from something. And it's got a great attack stat with 3 great abilities, and so I really think that Andy is going to have a hard time every week picking, or maybe not a hard time, but I think that Pangoro is going to come more than there's at least one Mon in the top 6 that is going to come less often than Pangoro, and I think that the team is worse for that, I guess. If that makes sense. I think that I don't really care about the below Pangoro. I think that they're not bad. They're not bad picks. I like Morgram. I think it's a good value pick at tier 20. I don't think it should go up. And I like Pinsir. I think it's a good value pick at 40. I don't think it should go up. But we'll just see, with a good top 7, we'll just see if these bottom 4 come into play very often.
Yeah, I think this is more, like I said, the type of team that I would draft, so I'm pretty cool with it. I'm not a Morgram fan like Andy is. We've talked about that in personal, like, DMs and shit like that, but I think Wishy-Washy will come exactly one time, and it'll run like Choice Band Liquidation and do perfect with that 140 attack set. And like, I'm a big fan, everyone knows I'm a big fan of Magmortar, and Pinsir is cool Pokemon. I'm skeptical on Morgrams, for tier 20, whatever. So yeah, I think overall, though, I do think, though, that you're right, that it's like, this is a good team. I don't know if this is the coach to pilot it. What do you think people need to do to beat this team?
Yeah, I think it really depends how it's played.
Right. Because it's like, what, bulky offense? Is that how you would describe it? Yeah.
Like, it's like balance.
It's very, balance. Yeah, balance, bulky offense. It's also very flexible. I mean, you have things like Corviknight, Celebies, or Auras, Latias. All things that can set up, that don't need to set up to be good. Yeah, what do you think?
Right. I'm kind of feeling like, I don't know exactly, what tact I would take, but I sort of have the feeling that, like, if something gets set up on this team, if someone can set up before Andy, that it's not going to be good news. Like a Dragon Dance, and then I believe your base 95s are outspeeding Zeraora. I need to double check on that, but I have a sense that something like a Dragon Dance Haxorus would be doing a lot to this team.
Notes for week 1.
Terrakian's my go-to. Does that one look amazing against this team? Actually, it doesn't
looks fine.
It looks fine.
No, actually, yeah. I mean, again, I will bring Terrakian because I paid so much for it, but I don't love Terrakian in this matchup. Which, again, I think speaks to what Kyle was saying about the type matchups, right? This is a team that, with maybe an exception for Ice, like, this team can usually cover itself in some way.
Right. Yeah, I think he's gonna have a good time with this team. I think if he is determined to be flexible with his team building, you could technically bring the same 4 moves on Corviknight and the same EV spread on Corviknight every single week. But if he's determined to be flexible with his team, I think this is going to work really well with him. I think he could learn a lot about team building and draft league in general with this type of team. And I'm overall very excited about this team. So
yeah, it should be clear just before we hop over to the next one. It should be clear. I think it's a great team. The question is mostly about the match.
Yeah, does the team match the player?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my final note on this, I do think mostly, right? Again, like, literally, I feel, at least for me, that I'm being nitpicky when I note something like that little bit of power added by Nidoking, because it is only a little bit. And again, like, Andy, you're great. Everyone, you're one of the best players in the league, and I have no doubt that you will use this team extremely, extremely well. I can't stress enough the fact that we had to dip to, like, concerns about the players speaks to how incredibly solid this team is, and you will use it well, and I have no doubt about that.
Right. So, cool. Next team we have is the Boston Beartics. First overall pick being Celesteela, but getting somehow the, like, Dragon Fairy Steel tier or core of Zygarde, Clefable, Celesteela. Holy, like, talk about a coach that is incredibly versatile. Like, Nick is the coach that inevitably makes us up tier Pokemon, overvalue Pokemon. Like, this is the coach that, like, drafts Volcanion and Como and Tornadus, who get, like, ranked up a tier, who also get, like, Aegislash and Piloswine and Terrakion, who get ranked up a tier. So, like, what a fucking core, Dragon Fairy Steel core of Celesteela, Clefable, Zygarde. The coach who's been on record for saying that top tier is overpowered and getting a tier 200, a tier 180, and a tier 180, and then just, like, the lowest possible Pokemon to just, like, also, frankly, the best low tiers to, like, I guess, couple with this core of Pokemon, we got Nick J, a regular season champ, or regular season first place finish once, champion once, and playoffs all 3 times they've been in the league. What do you two think about the Celesteela, Clefable, Zygarde, Swampert team we have in front of us?
I think that, yeah, you're right to point out the 3 Pokemon, 180, 180, 200 for Zygarde, Clefable, and Celesteela. And again, like I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of discussion this offseason about how to kind of rein in top-heavy teams, how to basically have more tiering options be viable strategies. And we actually did make a pretty sizable shift. We basically eliminated tier 160.
I was going to say, we just said, I don't want this one anymore.
Right, exactly. And so it's basically Galarian, Zapdos, and that's it in the whole tier. And
and Gengar.
And Gengar. That's it.
And 3 of my 11 Pokemon. Anyway.
But anyway, so I think that this draft, and especially Nick's, this draft, everybody's draft this time, but especially Nick's draft, really shows that we're not going to find any market-based solutions if we think that top tiering is a problem.
Right.
Just trying to change the conditions a little bit, and then still have everyone have free picks. I don't think is gonna change anything. And I think if we reduce the number of points, then Nick would just go more all in on the top tiers. So that's its own kind of meta concern. I think it's pretty clear that these Pokemon work together. Celesteela and Swampert is kind of that classic pairing that we've seen so many times throughout the league. Celesteela, Clefable, Zygarde is a really solid Dragon Fairy Steel core.
Definitely the best. I think I can go out and say that's the best in the league.
The best in the league. Is
it
the
best? The best drafted.
Certainly, it's the best. It's the best this season, and I would struggle to come up with a Dragon Fairy Steel that I looked at instead of this and said, "Now that's the best one."
I'm not the best fan. I'm not my favorite. I don't think Zygarde is my favorite Dragon type overall. I think it's maybe my favorite ground type. Actually, no extra real list, but yeah. So it's maybe you could get a better 180 Dragon type, but come round 3, maybe not. Right. So it's props for this core,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you could swap Zygarde for Garchomp. I was thinking about how, to throw a little bit of
in the draft league where nobody else has any drafts and you can just pick the 3 best Pokemon possible, then Celesteela, Clefable, Garchomp is pretty good.
Yeah.
Adam, are you done? Do you have any other thoughts?
I just want to throw a little bit of cold water on all this praise, which is that I do think it's noteworthy that in the top 3 picks we have a flying type without defog and we have a ground type without rocks. Now Clefable does have rocks, or has rocks, which kind of make up for that. But I think that is noteworthy, and there's a really strong top 5 here with a ton of points invested, and the only hazard control is Espeon with Magic Bounce. So there's hazard control lower with Talonflame and Frostmoth. Does Frostmoth get defog?
Yep.
It's never lived long enough for anyone to find out. Got him!
Oh.
So anyway, I think that's an area that this team is going to struggle a little bit. Not that it's particularly weak. Not that there's a lot of Pokemon that are really hating rocks, except for Frostmoth, which can just throw on heavy-duty boots. But anyway, that is kind of a noteworthy thing, that even though it's a really great Dragon Fairy Steel core, the secondary typing
right
synergy could be improved a little bit.
Right. I mean, I think like the one thing about like the big con about top heavy teams is that like you have to deal with low tiers, and I think like what separates a good player from a bad player is like, can you draft the low tiers that particularly address your top tiers? And I think this team does pretty well at that. I mean, there is Linoon Galar, which I think is ostensibly a terrible Pokemon, and you never like rationally pick that one over any of the other Pokemon that are on this fucking team. But like everything above that, Electabuzz, Tyrantrum, Gourgeist, Talonflame, and Espeon in particular, have a particular niche inside this team. You know, it's like Celesteela, Clefable, and Zygarde, neither are known for hitting really hard right away. So we have things like Swampert, Espeon, maybe Gourgeist, and depending on the form, and Tyrantrum to hit hard immediately. You know, we have some like there is some bulk here, so if Nick wanted to go on the more offensive route, you can turn towards Gourgeist to give you more offense, Talonflame to give you some utility, and you can build a kind of like balanced stall team with it. So I do think that if more praise added to Boston Bear takes, I think the low tiers really complement the high tiers, and it's like that's the fucking worst part about drafting, like going up against a team that's top heavy, is when the bottom doesn't feel very like terrible on the team. So one thing that's also hard about building against this team, since I play it week one, is like there's no like highlight Pokemon. It's not like, oh, this team is built around Tornadus or this team is built around Kyurem. It's like there's a trio of Pokemon that this team could be built around, but we have no idea if Zygarde is going to be the setup team, Clefable is going to be the like somehow the like highlight Pokemon, Celesteela is going to click Autotomize and Weakness Policy and just run through your team. You have like this could be a team very well that at the end of the season, Espeon is the overall kill leader because 1 week Zygarde sweeps, and the next week Clefable sweeps. The next week Celesteela does. Tyrantrum runs Dragon Dance 1 week and sweeps. Like this has so many options for like what would be the featured Pokemon, and I think that's actually what Nick J thrives on, as being someone who's had Pokemon like Torn and Como and I don't know, Volcanion, all these other Aegislash who got the MVP last season. So this, I think this team is almost perfect for Nick J, with the exception that I feel like the offense, the like upfront offense, has to come from the lower tiers, because Zygarde's attack stat notably is 100, Clefable's is 95, and Celesteela has some good attack and special attack, but isn't really known for it. Ian, what do you think?
It's a great team. I know I was throwing shade at Frostmoth, but I love Frostmoth. It's super easy to kill, which is why I said what I did. But if you can't underestimate it, right? Like if it gets even one Quiver Dance off, you are in bad shape. And I think this applies to almost every Pokemon here. You already said Linoon Galar was bad, and of course it is. I will actually, maybe a quick side note, Nick, like I do think the one place you can improve is just look at tier 20 for something else, because you don't need its speed, you don't need its typing really. And the fact that that's, I think, my only gripe says so much about this.
Right.
Again, we spoke a little bit about like how versatile Gourgeist is. You can run it really thick or really, more on the offensive side. And on this topic of sort of like how thick this team is, I do think that's maybe the point that I want to end on and emphasize, like to sort of synthesize a couple of points that you two made. Kyle, I think you're absolutely right that like there's not one Pokemon that you look at that's the biggest threat. It's the three together. This Dragon Fairy Steel Core is so threatening because it is very difficult to OHKO any of these Pokemon without setup. At least I'm struggling to think of like what would do that. And let's say you have that Bandit Excadrill that the Ironhead would OHKO Clefable. It's not going to OHKO Celesteela. And, in general, I guess what I'm getting at is that, like, the synergy, especially of those three, and I think in general the synergy a lot of this team like really impresses me and scares me as somebody who's going to have to play this team at some point in the season. My thoughts on how to get through this team is like, again, this is a case of I really don't think you can sort of sleep on anything. I suppose my one thought is that, like, you know, if you can get rid of the frailer things first, whether it's through good predictions or whatever, the battles against this team are going to be long, and I think coaches need to sort of go in knowing that and either bring as stally a team as they can or bring a team that will counter that by just, I may lose, but it'll be over in 15 turns, one way or the other. I think those are sort of the two ways to approach this. And I think depending on what Nick brings, either one could or couldn't work. This is a rough team. Good on you, Nick.
I mean, I think it's notable that, like, a lot of the defense, as strong as the defense is, relies on whether or not Celesteela is bringing a setup sweeping set, or if it is going to be a defensive wall, and whether or not Clefable is going to be sort of the, like, Magic Guard standard Clefable set, or if it's going to be just the Unaware set. Because I think you could potentially bring an offensive team that just overwhelms this type of team, because the offense on this team has to, like we said, has to come from the low tiers. It could be just that you just like, you know, if you're a team that has a Pokemon like Rillaboom or some sort of like really good wall breaker, you might be able to just like gain an edge on Nick's team that they're not able to like regain as the turns progress, if that makes sense. So that would be like my biggest thing, is just like, you know, with bulky teams, if you can maintain momentum and like sort of like maintain pressure, like what are they going to do to you? Just click Moonblast or Wish? Like, who cares? You just like keep clicking attacking moves. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think my advice in general to any kind of defensive core, which I do think that this Dragonberry Steel is primarily defensive synergy, my advice is to find the as many neutrally hitting stab moves as possible, and
like water, water, like banded liquidation.
Yeah, banded liquidation. Yeah, banded ice move. And don't choice scarf or band or specs into something like, you can't band Rillaboom against this team. It's not going to work because of Celesteela, right? Because you have those quad resistances. So if you're going to put band or specs on something, it better be, you know, neutrally hitting. Its stab move better be neutrally hitting almost the entire team, or
at least the top 4 Pokemon that he's going to bring every freaking week.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of my biggest advice. And then with that, you know, you'll find that you know, surprisingly, like water and ice moves can do a lot to Celesteela and Zygarde, or and water moves can do a lot to Zygarde, and that over time, that damage, those burns, the potential freezes and whatnot are gonna rack up. So that's maybe my advice.
The last thing I'll say is that I wrote down my notes. Is Gourgeist going to be the next Piloswine? Is this going to be a tier 60 that with 122 defense? Is this going to be just the thing that Nick brings every single week and finds purpose for the team every single week? And it's like, I don't know. Nick is known for like how many Pokemon has this kid drafted that we've just then brought to the next tier, whether it's Volcanion or Aegislash, Como-O. Yeah, it's Piloswine. So I feel like Gourgeist, like I feel like the question is going to be like, is Gourgeist actually worth 80 points, or is Nick just a good coach? So that's the last thing I'll say on that one. So next we'll have Las Vegas Venusaurs at the 11th pick overall out of 14, with a very sort of, I guess we could say, like, off-kilter core. of a ghost type, a ghost type, psychic type, fighting type, bug type, dark type, like all these other like if Black J32 and Burditto are known for scoring, it's usually on the basis of cores and synergy. And this is sort of like the alternative versions of that, the sort of like Stranger Things upside down version of cores and Psychic Ghost fighting Bug Dark. What do we think? Is this just like a team that's so left field that it's hard to rate? What do we think about this team?
Yeah, I find it extremely difficult. I think that for me, and we were talking about this before, we were debating, what exactly is the thing that is difficult about this team to kind of parse. For me, it's Necrozma and figuring out how Necrozma fits in with Gengar and Zapdos and Araquanid. And that's partially because I don't have, quite as good of a handle on how Necrozma, the different options, outside of weakness policy or defensive with Stealth Rocks. And I just, it's just difficult because I'm not really seeing like a star here. And I'm also not seeing a whole lot of synergy between the top three, or top four, maybe the top five. You're starting to see something emerge a little bit, but I don't know. For me, it's that Necrozma that makes it difficult for me to evaluate, and not necessarily that the Necrozma is a bad pick, just that I can't understand how it's going to fit in with everything. So that's difficult for me. I like and I don't like the low tiers. I think not everyone's a fan of Klefki, but I like it. I think there's a lot of value there, especially, you can get screens for Gengar, or Spikes Up is really great. Druddigon and Miltank and Rotom Frost and Sandslash are all mons that I'm interested in, and so I don't know. In general, I just am kind of left unsatisfied and not feeling like I know what to make of this team.
Do you think you agree, Ian, or are you a believer in the Necrozma, Gengar, Zapdos?
It's kind of like this, right? Like, I love almost all of these Pokemon individually. I'm very much a Klefki hater. I would rather eat my own keys than draft Klefki. But, like, that's because it doesn't fit my playstyle and not because it's bad. And so, like, if I put that bias aside, like, I think as an individuals, every single one of these Pokemon is good. There is something about, like, taking a step, and it's so strange to me too, because like as the draft was happening and Sean's team was coming together, I loved it, and then there was something about today when I was looking at it, I still think it is good, and also I do really struggle with, like, I don't know if this is as cohesive as it could be. So I have sort of two thoughts, and the one is I do think this team can still work exactly as it is. It will come down to being sort of like vicious in the play style, right?
Yeah.
Sean is going to have to, lead with Klefki, set up both screens, and if it hasn't died by the end of that last screen, does Klefki get Misty Explosion? My point is that you want it, spikes until you do die, right? But, just use Klefki as a suicide lead with Light Clay, and then make the most of that and set up sticky webs if you need them. Otherwise, just transition into Zapdos or Gengar, whichever makes more sense, and start slamming things with choice locked stuff.
Right,
and
kind of that overwhelm offense.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And then this will be supported to some degree by there's a little bit of that defense in, how thick Necrozma is, especially supported by Prism Armor, and the fact that, Incineroar is really good defensive utility. A second option that we talked about that I do think is worth considering, Sean, is just a couple of small trades make me like go from liking this team to like really, really loving it. And I think specifically like the thought that I had was if you swap Necrozma out for Hydreigon, that's a huge step for me because your Dragon type is no longer Druddigon. At which point you can swap Druddigon out for, I think, Whimsicott's in tier 80, but certainly, at the point that you don't need Druddigon to be your Dragon type anymore, you can look at tier 80 and I'm sure there's something in there, whether it's Whimsicott or something that I haven't thought of.
Excelgor.
Yeah, Excelgor for all of that speed.
If that's your sticky webs, then you can switch Araquanid out.
As a reminder, Excelgor doesn't get sticky webs, which is the worst thing about it.
Oh, what?
Yeah, right?
Oh my god.
Excelgor would be higher than 80 if it had webs,
Oh my god.
Either way, my point is this, Sean. Again, my thought would be this. If you already have cold feet, don't hesitate to make a trade. If by like week 3, right, keep tabs on how you feel about this team, keep tabs on how you're doing, and don't be afraid to make trades if it's going to punch it up, because I do think that I think this team works as it is, and I think just a couple of trades could really take it from works and is good to to a much higher level. And so that's sort of the thing that I would sort of keep in mind is this team is good and could be better.
It really feels like it's just user dependent. If you want to lean on the offense, you can't get more offensive than Specs Gengar, Choice Band, Zapdos, Galar, and then weakness policy setup Necrozma. And you have the type of setup you need in Araquanid and Klefki and Druddigon with Glare and Stealth Rocks. It's just a question of if that's the kind of playstyle you want to have. If you don't like it, then you have, because this team isn't too top heavy, you have a lot of flexibility with those mid tiers. If you don't want to play with 120s and 100s, I'm looking at Araquanid and Klefki and Druddigon. If these aren't Pokemon for you, trade them out, and you can you really have a lot more flexibility in getting another 160 or a 140 type like Sylveon, and switching your team and finding some low tiers that work for it. So it's just up to you. I think when I'm thinking of how a team might beat this one, I put a question mark on whether or not if there was a knockoff weakness, because we have things like Necrozma and Gengar, which not only are weak to dark types but really want to keep their item, and then we have things like Incineroar that really want to keep their heavy duty boots, or Zapdos, Choice Scarf or Choice Band, much like my Zarude, are gonna that's where it's gonna be best. Rotom Frost is gonna want its to keep its item as well. So I just feel like there's some sort of knockoff weakness. So when I'm going up against this team, I'm gonna be how do I exploit that sort of knockoff weakness, and how do I maintain and manage the sort of hazards, so that the offense of this team can't keep going. If it's if Araquanid is the lead or Klefki is the lead, and then I just defog turn 10, who cares? That's sort of what I'm thinking of. I'm also thinking of things because the Dragon Fairy Steel Core is 2 Pokemon, it's if you have, I don't know, a Latios, you have Draco Meteor and a coverage move like Mystical Fire. The only thing switching into Draco Meteor is Klefki, and it doesn't want that coverage move. If you have a Haxorus and you click Swords Dance, or if you click Dragon Dance on it and you have coverage move, Earthquake, to cover for Klefki, then you're going to be in a really good situation. So I think just sort of that Dragon Fairy Steel offense, this team starts looking a little bit weak to that. What do you guys think?
I have a
How
couple
might the
of
average
thoughts.
team beat
One
this
that I
one?
want to say is, Kyle, you have to stop saying the words Dragon Dance Haxorus, or I'm going to lose every match this season. You gotta stop that. Um, and that joke aside, I want to sort of reinforce. I think knockoff is a great thing to bring versus this team, and I think there's actually a pretty significant fighting weakness too. And it's really interesting, right? Because Zapdos, Gene, Necrozma, and Gengar all either resist or are immune to fighting, but you really, really don't want those three. You don't want this offensive core to have to tank those moves for everyone else. And when you start
Right.
looking at everyone else, Miltank, Thievul, Rotom Frost, Incineroar, and Klefki is neutral, right? Like, Bandit Close Combat runs a train on this team, and I think, sort of bearing in mind that there are a handful. I don't know if you can. There's got to be plenty of Pokemon like this, right? Like, if you've got knockoff and close combat on the same like life orb Pokemon, you're in really good shape.
Right.
So that is at once like advice for coaches playing this team, and something for Sean to very much be aware of, that the same move can really mess up a lot of these Pokemon.
Right.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things to biggest ways to win against this team would be keeping in mind basically like not making. I think there's some common pitfalls you could run into against this team. Like, I think it could be really tempting to defog away webs immediately and not think about Galarian Zapdos switching in to get the Defiant boost. For example, same thing with like knockoff on Necrozma with weakness policy, where it's just like so juicy and it's right there, but there's kind of like a common counter that Sean's team has for that. And so I think that avoiding some of those pitfalls are really going to be key against this team, at least as it's constituted right now.
Right. Cool.
And my comment is, I hope everyone will come out to see my ska band perform this Saturday. We are Juicy Knockoff. Thank you so much.
That's so funny. The last two teams we have are actually two more teams of the, like, I don't know, people hosting this. First being Punxsutawney Pachirisu, and then lastly being Haxorus. You two kind of got the wheel pick together, and I know you guys talked about how to make sure you don't overlap in your picks and make sure the wheel picks are covered and that you wouldn't step on each other's toes. Number 13 overall was Punxsutawney Pachirisu with the Toxapex Blissey 160-120 pick to start it. Adam, I feel like you were just like, I'm going to get my defenses covered and then I'm going to draft a team. Talk about what you did, and maybe Ian can respond. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, so I fully believe that this is not in the one of the best teams that I've drafted. I think it's fine. I think I'll have fun with it, and that's mostly why I drafted it. But I wanted to do something different. I feel like I've had smatterings of defense in the past. Like a couple seasons ago, I had success with Tangrowth and Incineroar together on the same team. But I just thought it'd be super fun. I was kind of like, what's the best, especially defensive Pokemon that's out there? I think it's Blissey. What's the best physically defensive Pokemon out there? That's, still has some level of utility and well-roundedness. That's Toxapex. And then I just went and was just thinking, okay, now that I have these defenses covered, I want some speed, I want some attacks. So just like the next time it came around, I just picked up, what I thought was the best physical attacker and the best special attacker left on the board. Weavile and Thundurus, they both hit extremely hard. They're both, fast. They have good, 125 is a great speed tier, but 101 is is really nice as well for Thunderous. They both have multiple setup options. Weavile has Ice Shard and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about these top four. I think not necessarily that they have amazing synergy, but they're just kind of at the pinnacle of doing what they need to do. And I feel like I've got a lot of teams in the past where it's just like somebody just couldn't quite avoid that 2-hit KO. I didn't have any mons that could avoid a 2-hit KO against somebody, or I didn't have anything that could break through X, Y, or Z. And so I really am hopeful that even though there's like very little apparent synergy, at least with my top picks, that the real synergy will come in team building, where I have a set of tools, and I will not run into a problem where I don't have the tool in my toolkit that can solve it. So that was kind of my goal in drafting those top four. And then just down the line, I feel like I don't have great hazard control. It's part of why I got Eldegoss over some of the other, honestly, better grass types in the lower tiers, like Gorgeist, or there's a couple other ones. I think Tangela is honestly probably better than Eldegoss in some respects. But Eldegoss has Rapid Spin, so that's why I went with that. Hitmonchan has Rapid Spin. I've had success with Hitmonchan in the past. In general, I think, I don't know, who knows, maybe I'll bring my low tiers a lot. But I think that there's some fun utility. I'll probably find some opportunities to show them off, and just take it one game at a time, man.
Adam, I really hope that you bring Basculin Eviolite one time in sort of an ode to the future Pokemon Legends, with Basculin getting an evolution. But honestly, I think that's like it's funny that like we've almost like talked about in this league how this hybrid format of like the 20 points to 200 point tier system sort of favors top heaviness, where you kind of went the opposite direction, where your first two picks were a 120 and a 160, and like you only drafted a tier 180 because it was a physical wall breaker. You don't have a tier 200 and you don't have a tier 20, but your lowest tier is Basculin, which we've talked to off record about as being a pretty good low tier Pokemon with adaptability, with 3 really good abilities, just objectively a good speed tier and some like sweet coverage moves and Scale Shot. I don't even know if it gets like Dragon Dance, but I know it gets Aqua Jet and some other cool things. Yeah. So it's like Basculin could be pretty cool. And I think a lot of your, you might bring your top 4 Pokemon every week, but I think it'll be a little bit of a head game on what Pokemon you bring to round out your team. And I think you're the type of coach that like excels in that sort of scenario, bringing Frostlass versus some other I think you were the first in our league to popularize. What's the one that Nick had this season? The dragon type. Dragon Rock.
Tyrantrum.
Tyrantrum. Yeah, like you're good at featuring your low tiers, and so I think in that sense you'll do fine in this way, and probably catch some coaches off guard when you bring like Choice Bearing Golurk and win or something like that. So
I hope so.
Yeah. Ian, what else do you think? And also maybe you can talk about like what you can what someone can do to beat this type of team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say, Adam, I think you're being too hard on the synergy aspect of your top four. Like, it's not perfect, right? Like, certainly Entei and Toxapex don't love the fact that they're both weak to Earthquake, and then there ends up being something of an Edgequake weakness when you factor in the other two. This said, I still do think it's great that you even have a flying type up there, and especially one as good as Thunderous Therian.
Right.
I will know. I will peak in this league when I draft Thundo and like use it to its full potential because I love this damn Pokemon. And I think too that based on I think conversations we had before that like you also see the potential in it, and I am confident that like you can use it to that potential. I think I don't know. My point is this: I think the the top part has more synergy than you've given it credit for, and as I think has been brought up, like I do not personally love a couple of these lower tiers, but I do like a lot of them. I'm a big Basculin fan. I want Eldegoss to be good, and I hope you can show me why it is. I love Dollark. And then, Duraludon is there, but it's fine. Duraludon's just such a weird Pokemon. It's weirder than it is bad, right?
Yeah, I even hate Duraludon. I think it's a bad Pokemon, but it was just like it exactly fit the set of things that I needed at that point in the draft. So I'm hoping that I can use it to like not be shit.
Please just bring Specs Duraludon once and be like, oh, okay, this thing has a specialist attack stat of 120. Like, I think it could have some like weird offensive pressure. But yeah, like both of you mentioned, it's like that's a weird fucking Pokemon.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's great, but I think it's mostly just that it's weird. You can't think of it as Steel or Dragon type, or you'll start to lose with it. We've sort of lost the plot a little bit, and so I want to cycle around and just say, Adam, I really like this draft. No draft is ever like totally perfect. But I think we've already identified the flaws, and I don't want to focus on them because I think on the whole it's really good, and I think you're going to do really well with it. When I inevitably play you, and the advice I would give to anyone else is to, and this is so much easier said than done, but like, be ready for the powerhouse that Toxapex Blissey is, right? Like, small teams based around those two dominate OU for a reason. It's that core is really hard to break. And this, only gets more difficult when you factor in that, Volt Absorb and Thunderous and Eldegoss can tank an electric hit if it needs to, as well as an Earthquake if it needs to. And just in general, don't rely on like one Pokemon to win you this game. We've come back to this idea of like Terrakion a lot of times, and Terrakion puts in a lot of work against this team. But like, if I roll up to my match against Adam with only Terrakion, or to reframe this, with only Terrakion as like my wall breaker, if I lose that too early, I'm boned.
Then you just can't beat Blissey. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't beat Blissey. I probably can't beat Toxapex. And so, like, be careful and be mindful of the fact that you need multiple ways through this core. Once you're through the core, I think a lot of these Pokemon lack the recovery to last particularly long. And so that's really the key is, break the defense and the rest will crumble.
Right. I think for me, it's like knockoff, hazards. These things like mean a little bit in the short term and a lot of bit in the long term. Things like Toxapex, Blissey, Entei, Thunderous, Weavile, almost all of those want to run either leftovers or heavy duty boots. And if you can just if you can just stop it from getting that passive recovery or the lack of entry damage right off the bat, then you're going to be in a better shape. One thing that I was thinking as well is like this team's kind of odd in the sense that it has like the walling potential of Toxapex and Blissey and the wall breaking potential of Weavile and Thunderous. But it's almost like there is a lot of playstyles that are somewhere in the middle of those two. I'm thinking about like an offensive team or a bulky offensive team, which it can like tank a hit from an Ice Shard, Weavile, or something like that. and in front of Toxapex it clicks Dragon Dance, or in front of Blissey it clicks Swords Dance, and then it's able to break through. So I think if you're playing this team, thinking about how you set up in front of the walls, in order to then break or like sweep through the wall breakers on this team, which are notably incredibly fast, I think you'll do really well. Just don't sleep on how hard these wall breakers hit. Even like Entei and Duraludon hit incredibly hard. So just be careful, because this is a creepily offensive team given the defense. So that's all I'll say.
That's the note I'd like to end on, unless, Adam, do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
I guess you probably don't want to tell people how to beat your own
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few tricks up my sleeve.
Cool.
And I'll just add, I hope one of those tricks is something involving Entei, because I was thinking about it. I feel like I don't remember the last time we saw Entei. And in general, right? No, I'm sure the last time that we saw it was fucking Ben, because rightly so. Ben loves drafting that Pokemon. I think it's a really compelling one, and Ben has used it well, and I'm just glad to see it back.
Right.
I really love Entei, and it's cool.
You need to name it Bente after this.
Ben, oh my
no.
god, that's it. That's the one. Bente.
All right. Actually, the last one overall is Houston Haxorus. You got the actual wheel pick. Your first and second pick were Terrakion Bulu, which was a little bit of like a I don't know how to describe it in sort of like musical terms, but you sort of like swiped a previous core that we've seen in Bulu Terrakion, which Nick J used last season with incredible success, and you thought, it's my turn to make a team around this core. What do you want to say about your team before we move on?
I think I really like this musical idea, right? This is the sort of super freak transformed into can't touch this of the league. I wish I had pulled a better. This is like the Ray Charles into Gold Digger of our league. There we go. Anywho, yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of like this, right? Like, I said in the server that there's a part of me that just considered, like, completely biting Nick's style and also drafting Aegislash and
Terrakion. Or no, wait, Terrakion and Bulu.
No, yeah, I got Terrakion and Bulu, and that's what I mean. It's like stealing even more from his team last season, because the thing was that, like, when I had my ass handed to me well, it's not quite that simple, right? But as part of losing to Nick in the playoffs last season, I really came to realize, like, wow, Bulu Terrakion, like, sucks. They both hit really hard, and they both, like, are very much the kind of Pokemon that I like. That, like, maybe they can take a hit, but it doesn't really matter because I already hit you with my banded close combat. It was nice to know you. And so, like, I just kind of realized that, like, that I was going to have a lot of fun with both of these. And so that's why I coordinated with Adam and in general, all the folks that I could have, like, I really want this to work. I really want this pair, and I'll figure out the rest later. And I think I did a pretty good job of figuring out the rest later. I really like Haxorus as this, like, third option of just freight trains that are going to barrel into my opponents. And then I kind of, calmed down a little bit, and I think was able to pair a little bit of defense there in terms of, like, I think the addition of Suicune creates an interesting, partial...
Bulk. Right.
Yeah, I think Suicune plus Bulu... Suicune puts Bulu in a new context, right? Where Bulu is both going to be offense and defense for me, which I think is a kind of fun and interesting element that I'm going to have to navigate carefully. I'm also really proud of my decision to draft Alakazam, who is a Pokemon that I've kind of scoffed at a little bit in the past as, like, maybe just a little bit overrated, but I realized that, like, it's the special attack that I needed, it has the speed that I needed, and in general, I think fits really well on this team. I'm excited to give it a spin. Where I think this team starts to lose a little bit of steam is everything below Registeel. I don't think any of those Pokemon are, like, awful. I am, in particular, really excited to play around with Torracat. I think it's a really great T20 in that it's, like, a gimmick, but a really fun gimmick. in terms of just how versatile its moveset is, and intimidate user is always good. What I'm getting at though is I didn't realize until it was too late that I hadn't drafted any hazard removal, and so a lot of weeks I'm going to end up having to bring either Articuno or Rotom. And I think both of those are good tier 60s, but they are also tier 60 for a reason.
Right.
And especially, like, God forbid, if Articuno gets hit with a knockoff and then rocks go up, like, I'm probably boned. Or at least I'm probably going to have to accept the rocks are staying up, right?
Right.
And so all of this is to say, I love this team. I drafted a lot of Pokemon that I am going to have a lot of fun with. And I need to at once be mindful of those fundamentals, namely hazards. And further, something else that I, said to you both when we were sort of prepping this is I think the thing that I'm going to have to never let myself forget is that this team looks a little bit like my team from last season, but isn't. You can look at a Suicune, a Registeel, and a Bulu and think, oh, well, that is kind of reminiscent of how often I clicked Roost last season. None of those Pokemon get Roost. And so the thing that the thing that I just need to bear in mind, when I forget this, I think is when I'm going to, in the team building phase, start losing matches, is this team is not as durable as it appears. And I'm going to have to lean a little bit more into that offense than I did last time if I'm going to keep up the winning streak that I had.
Yeah, I totally agree that this team is incredibly offensive. And yeah, if you just look at your top 5, Terrakion, and just take out Suicune, so put your thumb over Suicune, Terrakion, Haxorus, Bulu, Alakazam. That's insane. And also, I noticed as we were sitting here that the speed tiers of those top 5 are effectively perfect.
Right.
Which is pretty awesome. So I think that's really cool. I think you're gonna find the most success leaning into that offensive side of things. I would love to see Spec Suicune or just something totally crazy like that. I think that could be really fun. Obviously, Subcalm Mind is great. Obviously there's lots of great sets. Yeah, I don't particularly care for the low tiers. I think they're like interesting individually. Like I do actually think Articuno maybe with heavy duty boots is a little bit under tier. I think Aubrey used it really well. Was it just last season?
That was last
Yeah,
season.
I think last season.
Yeah. And yeah, I in kind of the abstract, I like Garbodor and Rotom and Torcat. But I'm not sure. I'm not convinced how much they add to this team, aside from the, like you mentioned, Ian, the very needed and the very necessary defog. So I'll be curious to see how you manage to fit your low tiers in.
I mean, if I were to defend this team, I think that I think it's like tier composition is the same as Nick's was last season with the tier 180 and 3 tier 160s, and it's very top heavy, and so you shouldn't I guess overestimate how important these low tiers are, in the sense that it's Terrakion, Haxorus, Suicune, Bulu, Alakazam are going to come most weeks, including probably Registeel. And then from there, it's just how do we slot in one of these low tiers once per season? And it's with Garbodor with defenses of 82 and Spadef of 82, Rotom 77, 77, Torcat 50, 50, Crocrot 45, 45. There's ways to I said all those out loud to say that they're split defensively and Spadef wise, so that you can bring some pretty interesting sets, and they only have to come once. And with a team as top heavy as this, I think it's defined by how versatile, how creative can you be with the top of the draft. And I think this is fine. I think Haxorus is the low budget Garchomp. I think that Suicune provides a lot of bulk, and if a team can't break through its substitute as it calm minds up, you just lose. especially with grassy terrain up. I think that Alakazam can provide some really cool creative sets. That wouldn't be things you'd see on the OU ladder, but would be particularly perfect for draft league, where you can run specific coverage moves for like titrate into your opponent. So I'm actually really excited about this team. I think the like one big weakness with this, I guess two, would be the lack of longevity and the like, the like recover comes in Alakazam and Articuno, and the hazard control comes in Articuno and Rotom. But if we're just sort of like leaning on the offense, sort of like keep on that, what do you call it? Like snowball effect kind of offense where things just stack into each other, then I think this team could be really hard to deal with. And I think Ian will have a pretty fun sword division. It will be notably difficult because I think everyone drafted really well, but I think a pretty fun time in the sword division this season.
Yeah, when the draft was first over and I was looking at this, I had a lot more hesitations that you both have through your very kind words and through just being able to talk it out. I feel a lot better about this team than I did even just like on Monday. Good. Two final notes that I want to make, and then you two can tell everyone else how to beat me. The two things that I think are good are it's my penultimate semester of grad school, and I don't want to talk about how many things I have to do for that. So I won't, and I'll instead say that I think this team is going to support me in the fact that I don't have time to play matches that last more than 20 turns, and one way or another, this team is going to be gone in 20 turns. One team will be dead in 20 turns with a team like this, and I think one, that's a way that I often play Pokemon anyways, and two, again, I think it'll line up nicely with my real life. The second thing I want to say is I mean, it's no secret that Haxorus is one of my favorite Pokemon. Please see my team logo. And, even if that wasn't the case, I haven't drafted Haxorus since our Season 8, which was back in Gen 7. And as you two were talking, I kind of remembered, like, how much more versatile it is now, because it didn't used to have Dragon Dance, Scale Shot didn't used to exist, and it's not like it's lost Swords Dance or everything else that made it a huge threat before. First impression as well. I'm extremely horny to click first impression.
There it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Again, this team has its weaknesses. I think we've identified them, but the Pokemon, every Pokemon I drafted, I intend to have a fucking blast with. And even if I end up losing a few more games than I win, I anticipate having a lot of fun this season, and I can't be mad about that.
Yeah. So Kyle, how do we beat this team?
I think shout outs to Colin for noting that the teams that drafted terrain also drafted Pokemon that are weak to the secondary effects of that terrain. So, particularly with this team, there's Grassy Surge, Tapu Bulu, and that also, like, not only does it give the passive recovery and the nerf to ground a lot of the ground moves that exist, but it also gives a buff to grass moves. And with a team that's top heavy like this, you might see that Suicune and Tracheon coming every week and don't necessarily appreciate that buff to grass type moves. So I'll just note that, and I will also note the hazard control and being in the low tiers, the 60-point the 260 point Pokemon and Articuno and Rotom, and say do what you must to beat this team. But if you can manage that terrain and manage hazards, I think you'll be in a good position.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Yeah, I echo a lot of that. I was actually hoping to say some of that. So I have to regather my thoughts.
Sorry, I know that wasn't actually bitter, but in my mind it became like, Adam, I secretly hate Kyle. I get so words.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I would just say, you know, with this team, you might want to be planning ahead of time, um, what you're gonna do in front of Terrakion, for
Right.
example. Um, of course, it could pick close combat or Stone Edge or
Right.
quick attack or whatever. But the probability is basically the same whether you think about it before your match or during the match. So do yourself a favor and think about it beforehand.
Right.
That way you have a plan in place, and even if your plan turns out to be wrong, it'll be a better decision because you made a plan. So.
Right. I mean, you can also look and say like, most of the top hitters are physical attackers, and then other ones are weak to fighting or fire type moves. So Will-O-Wisp plus flamethrower looks kind of pretty good. Terrakion with Haxorus, Suicune, Bulu. None of those want to get Will-O-Wisped and then or burnt, and then the rest don't really want to get hit by flamethrower. So just like be very particular about how you approach this team, because if you let it get the advantage and the momentum, it's going to kill you before you have time to really manage the type of game you want to construct. Terrakion, Alakazam, Sub Suicune. These things are just going to like get ahead of your game plan, and then you're just going to have to be playing reactive instead of proactive.
Absolutely.
Cool. So,
but it's okay. I figured it out. I know how I'm going to beat you all. I've just
That's
decided. Suicune, it's gone now. It's Tapu Fini, and Garbodor, it's rubbish. I fixed.
there you go. Now that we have those two trades locked in, there's no way to beat this team.
Never mind.
All right, so stick around. We're going to go into the Shield division next, and we're gonna have a surprise coach to help us analyze the next two. But thank you, Ian. Thank you for helping us look at the Sword division teams.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast. I was happy to do it.
All right. Hey, and welcome back. We are now recording the second half of the episode. This time we're going to look at the Shield division. Thank you, Ian, for coming on and helping us with analyze the Sword division. Our special guest for the Shield division to help us figure out what's going on is coach of the Columbus Cobalions. Go ahead and say hello, Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan, also known as T-Row. I am a returning coach in a way that I took a few seasons off, but I'm back. I'm ready for action. I'm ready to go through these teams.
There it is. T-Row also has Twitch and is in another draft league that is a Wi-Fi league. And if you noticed in the server, they just posted their draft analysis for their team for that league. It's really cool. Has a Libero Cinderace on it and stuff. So go ahead and check that out. And we will get right into this. The first team that drafted in the Shield division was the number 2 overall pick, Coach Chris, the Galar United. Let me just pull it up right here. Adam and T-Row, what do you think?
I like this team. I think that the top is really nice. We were trying to discuss a little bit earlier whether or not this would kind of constitute a balance, and potentially with some Wish Pass support from Umbreon. I feel like this is a nice balanced team. Yeah, I think that the kind of the mid tier, this looks like a pretty top heavy team. We have a 200, 180, 160, 160. And I think Umbreon feels like a solid 5th Pokemon, even though it's
Right.
several steps down. So it's really going to be those 5 most weeks, I think. And then I'm not quite as sold on the low tiers for this team. I think that I don't know. There's a little bit of a mishmash there, a little bit of a hodgepodge. But I think that there will be some utility. You know, certainly all of them have. Avalugg has its utility. Lycanroc has its utility, um, and so on. So I think that Chris is going to have a fun time team building most weeks, and that there's room for him to get kind of wacky with maybe one low tier and then um, bringing those top five most weeks.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Umbreon is one of the best pairings you can have with Dragapult. I think there's other ones, other tried and true examples like Mandibuzz, but Umbreon does really well. I think that the Cleric support really helps out with things like Dragapult and Scizor, if it gets burned and whatnot, toxic on Zapdos. So I agree with you that the top 5 Pokemon do really well together, which kind of sucky then that Chris has to dip down below that just to get something with hazards.
Sure.
Yeah. Ryan, what do you think?
I think that Chris did an amazing job building this team to better help Hex Dragapult shine. So
true.
he's got status everywhere. He's got the static Zapdos. Umbreon with both its synchronized ability as well as just spamming toxic. And then as well as Alcremie can Heal Bell off as well as Umbreon. And then you got the T-Spikes from Whirlipede as well. So this is a very I see what Chris is doing here with building very much towards Hex Dragapult, which is a
Right.
very scary overall. My only issues with the team, of course, are then its drop off between its high tiers and its low tiers. The low tiers not really, most of the low tiers not really fitting well with the team. His knockoff spam is very scary versus this team as well. None of the mons here want to take knockoff except maybe Umbreon, and that's about it.
Right.
So once Umbreon goes down, and especially with knockoff users being fighting types, once Umbreon goes down, very, very scary thing to handle.
Right.
And especially thinking about bringing heavy duty boots on like Zapdos most weeks probably. Once that gets knocked off, then your this balanced team is in a little bit of trouble. Like you pointed out, Kyle, the hazard. Chris putting up hazards doesn't have too many options. So, you know, is there going to be a lot of situations where Scizor is stuck? It can't bring Sword Stance because it has to fit Defog, some things like that.
What I do kind of appreciate, like you do have the balance, almost semi-stall with Zapdos, Scizor, Umbreon, Alchemy, Avalugg, going on right there. You can like really, that's like a mode that the team has. And then another mode would be pretty offensive. It's almost like Chansey offense, but instead of Chansey, you have Umbreon. And then it's just Umbreon and 5 Pokemon that hit really hard, whether that be the Lycanroc or maybe the Sceptile, or it's set up hazards with Whirlipede, and then you have you have your sort of Volturn core with Zapdos, Scizor, Dragapult that can all just switch into each other, and then like Specs Volcanion or whatever the heck not. So I think it's interesting because it's like, I don't think the team necessarily fits on a spectrum from very offensive to pretty stally. It's almost like it hits those 2 points, you know. I guess you could have like a bulkier offense as well, just with because that's what all those top tiers are. But yeah, so I guess I'll just light or share also just how offensive some of that is. Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun team. I had Zapdos and Umbreon paired before. I really like them together. I think Scizor is a good pairing with Dragapult. I think Volcanion is also a good pairing with Dragapult. I think that Scizor and Volcanion in a lot of ways will be able to like be built to wall break for the thing that is supposed to be there to stop Dragapult. So, or even Lycanroc too, Sword Stance, and I think it gets Superpower. I don't know if it gets Close Combat. Anyway, how might one go about beating this team?
I think it was discussed earlier, knockoff spam, as well as a special wall breaker ground type, specifically.
Who might that
So-
be?
We have Nidos
Yeah, exactly.
and
Right.
Landos.
Lando.
And
Yep.
there are others, I'm sure. That
Sure,
I just
sure.
didn't think of, but
Seismitoad.
Palisand.
Seismitoad, yeah. It's very
Name ground types. Go.
ground types are very scary for
Yeah,
this team.
it's
'cause
kind of it's. Go on. Sorry.
Zapdos isn't going to really hit a ground type other than Toxic, probably, or try to hit the Hurricanes on it.
Right. I
Avalok
mean, it
special
is.
defense is not high. Sceptile is not a ground check.
It is Edgequake week, like a rock move plus ground move. With Zapdos, like your Steel type can't really help with the weakness to rock. Volcanion, Avalug. So there is some sort of like offensive pressure where I do think you'll be able to break through some of this. I think winning the Hazard Wars, like get rid of the rocker, defog, put up your own rocks, kind of thing. I think is something you can do because the rockers are in the low tiers on this team.
Yeah, especially if you're playing against this team, like identifying whether Scizor or Zapdos has defog, maybe by observing like, oh, if Zapdos has Thunderbolt, then it maybe didn't have room for defog this week. Okay, I should look at Scizor then, and like kind of focus on positioning to eliminate that. And then this team is not going to be able to play the long game once that
Right.
defog
If
goes down,
things
I think.
lose its items and the hazards are up, I think it does become longer or a tougher game. But honestly, though, I think Chris will do well with this team. I think all these top these top 4 Pokemon can be pretty versatile, though. So you kind of got to watch out for that when you're playing against it. Physical and special Dragapult, physical or special Volcanion, and then either defensive or Sword Stance Scizor could really screw you up.
I'm all for the top 5 mods here.
Oh yeah, they're really cool. Next up is Toledo Sharpedo. Chad got probably, can I call this the scariest Dragon Fairy Steel Core? Probably not. I think there's other ones that I mentioned yesterday, but holy cow, Garchomp Tapu Lele, though, that is a really, really cool start to the draft. And then to kind of get this Firewater Grass Core with 2 Intimidate users and Ferrothorn. Yeah, I think this is a pretty well-rounded team overall. What do you two think?
Yeah, I totally love this team. I think that, the top 3 are amazing. They're all extremely versatile. Like Ferrothorn can spread status for Lele and Garchomp. Ferrothorn and Garchomp could go all in on like Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin, or Iron Barbs to be really defensive. I just think there's a lot of great stuff here. Lele can set Psychic Terrain to help Garchomp avoid, help Garchomp set up with Scale Shot or whatnot. So I just think there's a ton of synergy. And I like the low tiers a lot too. I think that Swoobat, we haven't really seen it be scary, but I've had it before, and it's really nice to have on your team when you're prepping. It has like such a nice speed tier, and it's a really great number 6 to put on your team if you don't know what else to add. There's like the Intimidate core of Arcanine Quillfish. I think the low tiers are great. Kangaskhan is, I think, a good snag at tier 40. I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about this team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are some typings that look good against this team. I think, for example, Ryan mentioned as we were prepping that flying moves look really good against this team because Ferrothorn, like normally your Steel type, can switch into the flying spam. And that's not possible here. So there are ways, I think, to sort of, and what I would consider the defensive core that I mentioned before: Arcanine, Quillfish, Ferrothorn. Like, it depends on the week. Could be, I guess, Garchomp or Lele as well. But in any case, like, even the flying type doesn't get Roost. That's how little recovery there is. Kangaskhan does get Wish Passing, which will definitely be useful with the HP stat of 105. But this feels like the longer the game lasts, the harder it'll be for Chad to win. Thank God you got things like Lele and Garchomp, though, that can just, and even like Heracross, that can just like freaking break, like mow over teams.
Yeah, I don't think his game's gonna last long.
Yeah.
These games are gonna be over quickly.
Yeah, there's some really cool offense on this one. How else so I said, like, timing and like prolonging the game and flying spam could be two ways that you win against this team. How might other teams beat this team?
That's what we got.
Right. I mean, there's a little bit
You
of
just
like
gotta
a
play well.
yeah.
Do good.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. This really does feel like a week where you just gotta like build a well-rounded team that it works among it, like has good moving parts within itself that you can just like, I don't know, like, you know, these wall breakers matter a lot. Like, positioning becomes really important in games like this. You know, if Lele can't get that free turn in to click whatever move it wants to hit, then Lele's a lot less threatening. So I guess I would just say positioning as well.
I guess like
Generic one.
hazard removal is not great either.
You
You get those hazards up.
It's rapid spin with more Pico, and then defog with Swoobat and Torn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And you know, I guess we're finding a couple of things here, like fast wall breakers. So like a Weavile looks good against something like this, something that's faster than Garchomp.
That's true, because
Especially if it's faster than Torn.
right. Cool.
So okay.
Next up is Connor. And Connor drafted first overall Mew, and then got every single Pokemon that is versatile. I'm kidding, but it's definitely like Mew, Salamence, Grimmsnarl, Silvally can really just be any type of set every week. Yeah, what did you think about this?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, the amount of options, and it's going to be such a challenge. I mean, basically the range of possible outputs for this team is so huge. Like, if you know, with not very much input on team building, you know, I think that it might fall into these pretty standard, you know, Stealth Rock, Defog, Ice Beam, Soft Boiled, Mew, or whatnot.
Right.
But on the other end, there's so many options. Like, I think you could run Wish Salamence if you want. You know, you can run like lots of fun Grimmsnarl sets, and of course like Silvally and Mew. So I think the range with this team is really wide open, and it'll just kind of land on Connor's shoulders to try and put together the best team every week.
Yeah. Ryan, I think you said when we were prepping, you said this team is going to live and die by its flexibility.
Yes. The beauty of flexibility is of how hard it is to prep against. The danger of flexibility is how hard it is to prep with. So you are stuck with 1,000 different sets you can run with Mew, you can run with Silvally, you can run with Grimmsnarl, and you can run with Salamence, and you are spending a lot of time on doing sets like that.
Right.
And it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. If you have the time and effort to do that, I'm sure you can make some amazing sets and win some amazing games with this. If you do not, it's going to be really tough to start pigeonholing. And once you get into pigeonholing this team, it's a lot less threatening. Because what makes this team so threatening is of how diverse it is. It's not going to beat you just by straight up clicking an attack. There aren't
Right.
many mods on this team that's going to beat you just by doing that. So it's the diversity that is going to beat you. So if you ever start pigeonholing with this team, it becomes a lot tougher.
Right.
But I think Connor can do very well with the type of team he drafted, and I am not looking forward to facing it.
Yeah, it feels like a logistical nightmare to try to like prep for everything, every possibility. And it's not even as simple as like making sure you bring haze if you have anything that gets haze, you know, or clicking. There is a lot that wants to set up. You know, there's less just like turn one power on the team, I think, than some of the other teams. You know, this doesn't have Garchomp Lele, like the team we just looked at. But yeah, so I guess that's like a thing about it. There's also like a little like it's a bit of a problem that the speed, it like Archeops is the fast Pokemon, and then below that it's Mienshao, and then I would say, and then Salamence, and then I would say two Pokemon that would really prefer to be running like positive natures in their offensive stat, like Modest or Adamant in Silvally and Mew, because, you know, with the attack stat and special attack of 100 or 95 with Silvally, these Pokemon get scary once they have that turn that they can click the setup move on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I would say it's a slow team at first, you know, and in 2 turns it can be a very fast team. But yeah, I think for me it would be difficult, kind of like with the amount. So I had Silvally last season, and I kind of like had to rack my brain every single week where I was like, do I run Flash Cannon or Flamethrower as the 4th move? Do I run Defog and Parting Shot? And now I only have 2 attacking slots. And so I think that with this team, I think Connor will have to really sort of put a lot of labor into like figuring out that initial game plan. Oh, I think if I can break down, I don't know, Tangrowth, then I can win with Mienshao or something. Like, I don't know, just having the playbook written, like it doesn't have the Amon like Tapu Lele, that it has just such an obvious play style to it, that kind of helps with that sort of preliminary prep work and team building aspect of it. But I think if you stew it if you like sit in the stew long enough, you'll find that Silvally and Mew can have a way to break every single team you go up against.
And when your biggest problem is just how diverse your team is,
right, you've done something. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
How might teams go about beating this team? Besides praying that you guessed the right Mew set.
it's the diversity. You gotta out offense the offense, or you gotta out offense the teams before they get set up is probably the best way.
Right. Yeah, if you can get that thing in faster than Salamence, so Salamence can't revenge, or just keep clicking attacks so that Silvally and Mew can't get started.
Pivots. This team also hates pivot versus it. Its Volt Switch immunity is a barrel whack.
That's true.
Right.
Unless you want to bring Silvally Ground.
Silvally Ground, yeah.
And then you don't have the ghost. Then you don't have the ghost immunity anymore.
That's true.
Other than Grimmsnarl, which is a practical ghost immunity in its own right.
Right. There's also when your Steel type doesn't resist Fairy types, and 2 of the other Pokemon, 3 of the other Pokemon of your top 5 are Mienshao, Grimmsnarl, Salamence. Then Fairy starts looking good.
You're gonna really you want to bring Silvally Ground, then you want to bring Silvally Steel, and then you want to bring regular Silvally.
Right.
Like, I think those are the 3 big ones that you can expect to see often, just for the fact that you don't have to handle Volt Switch issues anymore, or then the Fairy weakness anymore, and then the Ghost issue anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that scouting is going to be pretty important against this team. So potentially things like phasing moves would be a good bring. To see, click roar in front of you, see if it clicks a setup move. Maybe it clicks setup
Right.
move, maybe it clicks something else. So that could be a good potential option.
Right.
Also, one more thing: if you can get hazards up versus this, then you can play the hazard game at a tie
Yeah.
because there is no spins here. It's just defog. So if you can force them to defog, then you're at least playing the hazard game at a tie instead of losing it.
Right. And they're wasting a turn. They're wasting at least one turn, maybe 2 turns to get in their defogger and click defog.
To be fair, they have some really good defoggers. So
Right.
I think everything on the team gets either hazards or defog, it looks like. But yeah. So anyway, this is a cool team. I could see Connor halfway through the season loving it or being like, can I trade everything? It feels like that type of draft.
We did
definitely
note.
is.
We did note yesterday. I'm not sure if we actually said it on air, but because trades between coaches are unlimited, 2 coaches could technically just trade teams in the middle of the season.
I like your diversity. Let me have you have a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, T-Row, you're gonna be like, Coco Slowbro, I'm bored. Give me your entire team.
Give me your diversity. You can have Coco Slowbro, Rillaboom.
I would love to see. I feel like Chris is crazy enough to actually do that. I'm not sure.
Oh
if
yeah,
he's
yeah, Connor. If you're dissatisfied with your team, Dr. Chris. You might be able to get an entirely new team.
Yeah, right.
And you can watch this draft analysis to see what we think about your new team.
Right.
So next up on the list is Ryan, and Ryan, you talked to, I don't know if you said it in the public chat or if you messaged me about it, but you talked about how Coco Slowbro is a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a meme. It's like just like a meta core this generation.
The meta core of standard is Coco Slowbro. I realize.
Yeah, tell us why.
Pivoting. You turn on Coco being super fast and then teleport with Slowbro being super slow. You're always gonna go, and they check each other's checks so well. There are very few mons that can check both of these Pokemon, and so you are going to be able to pivot against them all the time. Really start racking up the damage. Heavy duty boots are both good sets for both Coco and Slowbro, so you're not taking any residual damage from rocks or anything like that.
Oh,
very
God.
beautiful, very scary,
and
very annoying.
I do not want to have to. I don't think I play you. Do I play you this season? I'm going to look. Thank God. No, I don't play you. So
I'm not the best at it, so I'm not gonna say I'm good at the pivoting options.
But honestly, though, just being able to click, you're gonna be able to click teleport in front of Slowbro, and then just put the biggest fucking grin on your face as you get Obstagoon in for free, or Rillaboom in for free, or now you go from Tapu Koko, you turn into Slowbro, then you teleport into Alolan Raichu, you get Alolan Raichu for free with 3 more turns of terrain. I think
it's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Getting in Rillaboom for free, getting in Obstagoon getting its burn for free is really great. Yeah, this team is. I like it a lot. I like the low tiers too. I almost drafted Alola and Executor. It's just strong, base 120, and it has nice, really nice coverage options.
I'm
with
not
a trick
a
room option as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that this top is so good that it feels a little bit sucky that that Steelix is your steel type. I think it's a good.
You hate Steelix or something?
No, I honestly I draft Steelix. I've probably drafted Steelix the most out of any other coach in the league. But it's just I this offseason I was just there is just a marked difference between the best steel types the top steel types and the low tier steel types. And so I just feel like that if I'm like, one, it should tell you how much I like your team that I'm complaining that you have a Steelix on it. But two, it's like, it is like it's like Nidoqueen, Moltres, or Nidoking, Moltres, and Steelix do share some weaknesses, and they are kind of like your Stealth Rockers and Defoggers. And Cryogonal isn't my favorite Rapid Spinner.
No, Cryogonal is bad.
Yeah.
I need the spinner, and Cryogonal is
that
here,
you have
I
one.
guess.
Yeah, that you have one is nice. But like, you're going to be bringing Moltres and Nidoqueen or Steelix most weeks.
Well, yeah.
Right, and so
Steelix, it's good.
Right, and so that sort of like overlapping water weakness, even with the Slowbro, I think makes your team like annoyingly possibly weak to Scald, especially since Rillaboom since Rillaboom is one of your attacking Pokemon.
Yeah, and having no heal bell is an issue as well. I can't just get rid of Scald. The only way I would get rid of Scald is resting, and I have electric terrain, so I'm not resting anytime soon.
That's very true.
I think it's also worth noting, I think Colin is the one who pointed this out, that your two your defensive mons in Slowbro and Moltres don't like your terrains that you're
Electric
setting
terrain.
with grass and electric. Yeah. That Moltres and Slowbro are weak to electric, Slowbro is weak to grass.
Slowbro don't care.
Terrains give a boost to the opposing Pokemon as well. So, and I think Nidoking, I think grassy terrain turns a lot of 2-hit KOs into 1-hit KOs on Nidoking.
Nidoking getting 1-hit KO by grass moves?
Maybe.
It happens.
Wood hammer, baby.
Yeah,
I think
looks like this team's weak to Rillaboom.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the team's good. I think you're gonna have fun with it. I think that maybe your Spadef.
My special attack and my special defense.
Yeah, are both. And if you're running Assault Vest Slowbro, then you can't be running Teleport. But this team is fun. You're gonna have a lot of fun with this team. Yeah, if you're not into playoffs and doing well in playoffs with this team, then it might just be because you're busy with other leagues. Because
I'm rusty. I'm 100% rusty.
Because this is a fun team. I'm kind of jealous that you have it. That Coco Slowbro is gonna make people quit the league, I think.
What's here for
the momentum core. That's why you come to the league, to get someone to rage quit and then you leave. All right, next up, Orlando Magikarp.
Did we say how people are going to beat this team? Did I just zone out for that?
We talked about like things that were weaknesses. I guess we didn't.
If you
Not that I have anything to say.
Pokemon, you're good.
Right. Yeah, it's like
physical walls.
Yeah, and if you do find that thing on your team, even if it has to be in your low tier, where like, I don't know, Specs. I can't even think of a Pokemon name right now. Yeah, well, hopefully not. Hopefully you're not having to dip down to Wishy-Washy to beat this team.
So Wishy-Washy for Rillaboom and top of Coco, I'm scared.
But like, I don't know, if someone had like Specs. I'm just trying to think of like an 80 tier Pokemon, Mesprit, as like the thing that has to be Coco Slowbro or something. Like that might be whatever it is on your team that could technically handle those two Pokemon. Then you got to figure that out for yourself and
good luck.
Lean in on that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna give you all any ideas.
I know you're thinking about them too, but I'll let you save those. All right, Orlando Magikarp, Coach Ben, drafting what I think the core here. Tell me what you guys think. I think the core is Mandibuzz, Slowking, Kyurem.
It has a Kyurem, and that's all that matters.
The core,
The core is Kyurem.
the dragon core is Kirim.
The rest are fine. You can grab whatever you want as long as you grab Kyurem.
But I do think that like Mandibuzz and Slowking do cover for Kirim's weaknesses. Not only do you have to hit Kirim really hard to do damage to it, but a lot of those like fighting moves, or I don't know, what other things do you hit? Like fairy moves, steel moves. Most of those are resisted by Mandibuzz Slowking, or they can, even if it's neutral damage, like Mandibuzz can take an Iron Head from most things in the game. So.
Right. Yeah, I am not totally sold on this. And maybe it's just because I'm not plugging in the appropriate value for Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Landorus, Landorus High on this team. But I was looking through the tier 180s that were left, and I just feel like I don't know, the two coaches who previously had Urshifu, Rapid Strike in our league didn't like it very much. And I'm curious if Ben is going to be able to turn it around and use it well. But if not, if I were Ben, I might be considering looking through some of the other tier 180s to see what hits really hard, like maybe Keldeo. Well, maybe not, because you have Landorus Eye and Kira, but something on the physical side, maybe Kartana, or maybe Como. I don't know. That's just kind of like my first blush, is that I can't quite see Urshifu and Landorus maxing, kind of being able to be used to their fullest potential here. But that's also could be on my analysis skills.
Well, Landorus seems to be the stealth rocker.
Right. That's the only.
I think Wigglytuff gets stealth rocks.
Oh, sure.
Wigglytuff and Carkle.
Ben, if you're gonna bring Wigglytuff every week, you should just draft a better Pokemon instead.
Ouch.
You should. I mean, like, but seriously, if you're gonna, like, last season you brought Miltank almost every week. And if you're
bad.
Right.
You've done something similar with Audino before too. So just that's maybe my suggestion. Maybe
draft a better Wigglytuff.
Draft a better version of Wigglytuff.
I'm glad you drafted Wigglytuff, Ben.
those 140 base HP wish passes into Kirim really gonna help out.
It is gonna.
I mean, Kirim could just roost it off anyways.
You're
wish passing into other things.
Right, exactly. One of the things that I do like about Kirim this generation that I don't know if our league. Here's me, I guess, giving tips to Ben, is that I don't think our league has really realized how mixed Kirim can be this generation, with access to Ice School Spear now and Dragon Dance and Scale Shot. It can really be a physically offensive threat too, as well as the standard specs Kirims with the freeze dries and all that shit, or sub roost bullshit. Kirim is just even more versatile than it was in the past. And one of the things that Ryan was saying that people have sort of found out in other leagues regarding Urshifu Rapid Strike is that it can still be a very potent attacker if you're running protective pads as the item. Because what would happen in our leagues is that you just pick one thing on your team, put Rocky Helmet on it, and every time Urshifu clicked its signature move, it would be down to like 65 HP. So really utilizing protective pads as like the same way that you're going to mostly run heavy duty boots on Mandibuzz, mostly run Urshifu with Rapid Strike with protective pads, I think could really make Urshifu feel like it's worth 180 points.
I don't know if it would be worth 180 points with just having to be forced to run protected pads each week, because it kind of limits its like ability to run different items.
That's true, and yeah, like a choice band and choice scarf. Other things are also really good with it too, but
it's also true that running protective pads, especially for the first several weeks, will make it so that coaches are not
Right.
able to prep for it so centrally, which will free you up later in the season. to
Right.
be
People
running
need to
those
know that
rides.
you'll do it, and then they'll prep differently.
I'm never backing off. I'm just running more knockoff.
That's true. I mean, the knockoff is important against this team. Mandibuzz, or I mean, like Slowking and Landorus Eye, Kiram, all appreciate their items. Like most Pokemon, but I think in particular this team starts looking worse the more it gets knocked off.
I mean, if you have 3 Eviolite users, your
That's true.
knockoff is going to be healthy.
Right.
I think the webs option is pretty good for this team. I mean, I think here the top 3 all look really good with webs up.
Right, because it's a slow team, so that
Right.
those Slurpuff sticky webs can look like a fast team. It's not
Right.
perfect because things do run heavy duty boots and shit like that, but
Things
I think
do
it's a good
fly.
option. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know. I know that there is a trick room option, but I don't think that this team is particularly suited to utilize it well. Like, the 3 kind of strongest attackers are Kiram, Urshifu, Landorus,
Are the
which
fastest ones on the team.
They're the fastest ones on the team, and they're not fast enough, really, but they're not slow enough either
Right.
to take advantage of trick room.
I guess you do have Doublade, which could be that trick room option with Slowking.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, it's odd. It's definitely like if Ben does not have a way to win, well, I might as well do something crazy kind of strategy. It doesn't feel very like potent in that sense.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about these low tiers. I like Thwacky as a Pokemon. I think it works fine on this team. Yeah, I don't know. Some of this down here, I think I would trade around. Even maybe the Doublade, I would trade around because I think there's a lot of promise in this top part, and I think I would be less hesitant about the team. I think some of my hesitancy on this top is because there aren't things that like fill in the gaps down here at the bottom, but that could just be me.
Yeah.
How do you beat this team?
Knockoff, like every other team.
Yeah, very true. Hazards, knockoff, positioning. What else do we have to say?
Rocky Helmet.
Yeah.
If you could beat the Kiram, I think you're in a good spot versus this team.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Some teams you kind of like, you really do have to just be like, I need to prep very much against this Pokemon. I would say these two. I would say Urshifu and Kiram. You need to know how you're going to kill those, and you know how you're going to outlast the Mandibuzz and Slowking. If you can do that, I think you'll have a good shot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think running speed and scouting for which if there's a Scarfer on Ben's team, which one it is will be helpful. So, but don't scout with Protect in front of Urshifu.
Right. What are the Scarfers? Lando and Urshifu?
Kiram is not.
I would not run Scarf Kiram.
Yeah, hopefully not. But all right,
That really hurts Kiram.
you can run it once. I'll let you do it just once. All right.
Yeah, do it against me.
Yeah, do it.
Right.
Baltimore Braviaries. Who wants to go? What's going on here first?
Oh,
someone
hats.
name the sin.
Yeah. So we have Jirachi and Togekiss and Cloyster together for the Flinch Core. It's even a trio with Cloyster because even though OU has banned King's Rock, our league did not ban King's Rock.
Yeah.
So that's great. Along with we have a Prankster Liepard with T-Wave. We have Sandaconda with Glare. We have Pincurchin with T-Wave. We have Regieleki, which presumably gets T-Wave. And anyway,
Does it? I actually have no idea.
maybe
Let me
not.
check.
Yeah.
Regieleki is a
it gets
trash
T-Wave.
Pokemon that should never be drafted.
It gets T-Wave, and I mean it also gets Electro Web, technically, but T-Wave is going to be the move.
So this is kind of a meme. I don't know. Is it a meme team? Is it too much? It'll certainly be fun. I think it looks pretty linear.
It's a
even
fun
though
team.
yeah.
What's coming. Do you know how to beat it? Is the question.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is even if you know what's going to happen, can you not get flinched? Are you just going to will yourself to not get flinched?
Right.
I think Dragonite gets Thunder Wave as well. Just that Dusknoir definitely gets Body Slam. There's everything. Jirachi obviously gets Body Slam. Togekiss gets Thunder Wave. So you're going to get paralyzed and you're going to get flinched, whether it's Air Slash or... I mean, also Togekiss and Jirachi are really good Scarfers, which can really help out with not only like increasing those hacks, but also just making the team a little bit harder to prep for because, you know, Dragonite can set up and get faster, Jirachi can be Scarf, Togekiss can be Scarf, Regieleki is fast. So it's not as simple as like outspeed the flinchers. I think this is going to be a fun team, a very weird team, and I actually really do like all the low tiers. I'm not necessarily the biggest Liepard fan, but that's less important.
He built his team specifically for his thing, and he did it well.
Is there some item? Like white herb or mental herb or something that protects against flinch? That's a myth, or that's not. That can't be true. Right?
There's the ability called Steadfast.
Yeah,
Or Inner Focus.
I was gonna say there's some of those.
Right.
Everyone drafts a Steadfast and everyone drafts Suicune.
Hey, Lucario is looking pretty good against this team. Actually.
Yeah, there you go. I think this is fun. I think that he's going to have a lot of fun with the Jirachi, Togekiss, Dragonite too. Just looking at the top, the Dragon Fairy Steel, because of how versatile they are. I felt like when I had Togekiss last season, it wasn't as versatile as it can be because I also had Zapdos. So I often didn't have to bring Togekiss, but I think like the options with Tailwind or Nasty Plot, there's a lot of weird things you can do with that, and then obviously Jirachi and Dragonite are two of the most versatile Pokemon in Draft League. So not only is there like the gimmick that's obvious, you could also not run that gimmick, Colin, and have a really good team. So.
Yeah, I'd love to see defensive Cloister 1 week with T-Spikes and Rapid Spin.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. Do we want to take an actual hack at the how do you beat this team besides get lucky? Fast and get lucky.
Scarf electric type, fast scarf ground type, or here's a big or here. Cherry berries everywhere.
You might be able to spam. Some ice beams in there, or I don't even know what to do there.
Other thing, get lucky.
Yeah, get lucky and Thunderbolt, discharge. Click discharge. Try to paralyze the shit out of them too.
Yeah.
Do they have it? I guess Togekiss and Jirachi both have heal cleric support. Damn it.
Jeez.
Do I play this team? I need to. Yeah, week 7. All right. I have 7 weeks to figure out what to do against this freaking team.
I don't have cleric support, so.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
You're screwed.
Good luck.
Yeah, you're gonna apparently win by just being convinced that Regieleki's bad.
It is bad.
That's your game plan.
You bring in any ground type at all, it can beat Regieleki.
Yeah, spec Swift, and we'll do
Right.
we'll do something.
10%.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Last but not least, this is going back. Yeah. Let's see here. Can I go? Nope. I gotta stay at this thing. All right. Holy cow! Latios, Feeny, Heatran, with 2 Rapid Spinners and Scolipede. With a lot of good speed in the low tiers. This is a solid team.
Yeah.
Adam, what do you think?
Core. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's an incredible core. I love some of the mid tiers. I think are really well. I guess there's not a ton of mid tiers.
Yeah, there are.
Scolipede and Sarina, I really love
Yeah.
both of those. I've been looking for a reason to draft Scolipede for a couple seasons now, so I hope you use it well. I do think there's a little bit of dyssynergy with potentially like T spikes with Misty Terrain. So that is interesting, and
And
also
the
with
Latios with
Latios,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you're not. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
Latios's Dracos against grounded Pokemon are going to be halved, but because Latios is floating, any dragon moves onto Latios are not nerfed.
Right.
Have you thought about running
Exactly.
like an Iron Ball just to bring Latios down?
Ah, yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, fairy type moves will be increased too. Um, but yeah, I think there's some clear uh, very tried and true low tiers. There's like Driftblim and Hitmonlee, which is I guess kind of a mid tier, but those both have the unburden options. We have Sneasel and Jolteon as kind of those standard, faster low tiers, which I know you don't like, Kyle, but that's fine. I think people dip down
No,
to
I think
get
those
some
ones are
speed.
fine. I think
Um,
it's fine on this team because there's speed in the high tiers. What I don't like is when people have no speed, so then they're like, "Oh crap, I got to draft a Selgor," and then just assuming that low tier speed patches something that the upper tiers don't. But on this team, it works just fine.
right. We were trying to debate what the purpose of Stoutland is, especially with some. There's some other tier 40 normal types that are, also pretty
Better.
good. Like Licky is in tier 40. That one.
Regigigas.
Regigigas.
I'm not a Regigigas fan, but I
Oh,
hope it's
come on. Regigigas is so good.
yeah.
I'm
No,
not like so good as in like it deserves any top tier. I just think it's the best low tier
Reggie
in my
Lucky sucks. Regigigas,
great.
that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
I mean, if I this is a tangent, but if you got protect and you got toxic and you got substitute and you got rest now, Reggie and its defenses are ginormous. It's going to survive those 5 turns.
Yeah, you can't bring all four of those moves though, because then where's your body slam? But anyway, so yeah. Anyway, I'm curious about Stoutland. Maybe there's some
Yeah,
there's like
Aubrey, when you listen to this, tell us why you drafted Stoutland. That was
Yeah.
the
I
big.
love Stoutland. I
That was
think
the
it's
big question
if
mark.
it's good because you thought it's cute, and I'm 110% for it.
So
yeah.
I like it. I think there's like there's a lot that I really like. The fact that Tapu Fini lasted till round 3 was really good for you, especially because you're like 12th in the draft. So it's not like if you're in the middle, then it would make more sense. But that means that Tapu Fini made it all the way around that many times. So that honestly, that top core just allows you. Those are Pokemon that I wouldn't doubt that you'll bring every single week, and that gives, and your low tiers give you the type of flexibility to do really well with that. You have some good, like, you're not having to run because you have rapid spinners and Lele and Sarina. You're not having to run defog on Fini as much, which is going to leave a slot open for another very valuable move like knockoff, or I mean, yeah, things like that. Like honestly, it's like that's a really good perk of the team. I think that Latios looks good on this team, except maybe with like that terrain dissonance. I think that the things that Latios can't or has difficulty breaking, Heatran is there to help out with that. Yeah, I think this is really cool. I think that Heatran's. Well, I don't think we've seen the best. We haven't seen Heatran do amazing in our league this generation. but it feels like a Pokemon that has a lot of potential this generation.
I'm just glad you didn't draft it first overall.
I told them
almost happened.
that I almost drafted Heatran or Hydreigon Heatran as my number one pick, but I'm glad you got it, Aubrey, because I think this is the perfect kind of team for it. And if I drafted it at number one overall, Feeney and Latios would not have made it back to me.
You should just drop Stoutland for Grookey so that 1 week you can bring Grassy Terrain with Heatran.
Oh, that'd be nice. That'll give you a different unburdened use too.
Unless Bulu's here. I don't know if Bulu was drafted or not.
It was.
Oh,
Yeah.
darn.
One thing I do actually really like, I had Feeney last season, and I found that it doesn't love to switch in on strong earthquakes like a Landers-Therian earthquake or like a some of those. So actually, I think Latios is really nice as like a like there's some defensive synergy with Heatran there that supports Feeney.
Right.
So I think that is, maybe that's a small thing, but I think it's gonna alleviate. It'll help you save Feeney for some of those strong checks, like the, hopefully not +2 Haxorus, but sometimes you got to be prepared. So
this team, just like what was the other team that I said where it could be kind of like Chris's team? You could run. I mean, this doesn't have the type of recovery that Scizor and Zapdos and Umbreon have, but you can run like Feeney and Heatran as Spadef walls certain weeks, and then but other weeks you can really sort of lean in on this 130 special attack and the 95 special attack with the Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, and things like that. You can really you can kind of do a pretty offensive mode some weeks, and I think be pretty successful, especially with Scolipede. Set up your hazards and then just pick the 5 Pokemon that hit the hardest against whatever your opponent is. And I think that you will overwhelm some people. You can Scarf Heatran with Eruption. There's some other cool things that you can do. So I'm excited about this team. How might the average team beat this one?
You see this team? This team is where Regieleki wouldn't do bad against.
We got a Volt Absorb. We got Jolteon.
You have
there.
Jolteon, but unlike most ground types, Jolteon isn't going to appreciate a special attack like normal, like Swift or whatever, as much.
Jolteon, unlike other ground. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I think. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I think recognizing that this team is pretty limited on its physical side, both defensively and offensively. You're having to dip down to Barbarical to see really, anyway, I guess that's not totally true, because Hitmonlee and Cyrena have 120 attack. But I just think that...
it is notable, though. It is notable that Lottie, Feeney, and Heatran are all special attackers.
Right, so having, and unlike a physical attacker, you can throw Assault Vest on. So, I'd say, running Assault Vest, but not letting that get in your way of running creative sets is a good option. And of course, with all the unburdened users, as always, just, be careful not to let them, get free setup. And be careful to save your checks, especially if you notice that Drifblim and Hitmonlee are there. You should expect that.
And also, saving sacks is really important. Like, you need things that can revenge Latios. So, being good with positioning, and also, okay, I just need to sack this so that I can bring in my Latios check, I think will be helpful. I think the lack of recovery is notable. So, I mean, after Scolipede dies, get those rocks off, or get the hazards off, and reset your own. Try to. I think there is room to outlast this team, so long as you have things that can switch in on Lottie. Not everyone has those things, but because I usually build bulky, I see that. I'm like, oh, I might be able to just outlast this team. But yeah, that's what
I
I'm
think it's a
thinking.
great team, though. This is so fun.
We should combine our teams. Your special attackers with my physical attackers. We'll
Right,
be
yeah.
unstoppable.
Yeah, if only someone drafted Latios, Rillaboom, Tapu Fini, Heatran, and Obstagoon. If only they did
Coco,
that. So,
Together,
Incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
exactly.
Yeah.
We can rule the galaxy.
it's just
Awesome.
an honor.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Honestly, this was really fun. I hope everyone got everything out of it, or got everything out of it. Holy cow! I hope this solves world hunger and the climate catastrophe. No, but I do hope that you like the new format. I guess I'll say sorry, not sorry that we didn't rate each of the teams. I do intend to put out my tier list though this weekend of all the teams. Ryan, thanks again for being on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What else y'all have to say before I click stop recording?
Yeah, I think you just, have a great season 15. I think we got a lot of our other stuff in at the top of the segment.
Right.
So, thanks for tuning in.
Don't forget to neuter your pets.
Okay. Thank you. We will see you all during the regular season, and have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye.